third episode of the replay and talk show series. Thank you all for being patient. Today we're going to be going over Zerg versus Zerg. And honestly, this is a matchup that, I was kind of joking with StRyKeR yesterday because I'm trying to get back into ZvZ and I'm like, I'm excited to learn from you. So, so honestly, we're here to give you guys, coaching content. But at the end of the day, StarCraft's a tough game. I'm learning things, StRyKeR's learning things, and, we hope that we kind of help to uncover things so that you guys can kind of reason and think through things yourselves. So don't take our word as law. We're not pro gamers. We don't know who we are. So we're just here to kind of talk through it and figure it out. But anyways, StRyKeR here actually qualified for... So what is it? Rogues? What is it? City Rumble? Is that it?
Rogue City Rumble? Is that the name?
RCR, yeah, I think that's the acronym. He qualified in the basically the North American tournament a couple days ago. How do you feel about that, man?
Feels pretty good. I wanted the first seed, obviously, but Crosby pulled out some pretty strategies and just mind gamed me. So
yeah,
I got first place.
Yeah, I mean it's nice of you to be in the crowd of winners while I'm still trying to qualify. So hopefully next week I could learn from today's ZvZ series so that I could take that with me to qualify next week. But
very, very interesting how the timing works out so that these ZvZ series ends up happening right before the quals.
Oh yeah, it's all strategic for me. I'm just trying to learn from StRyKeR because it's all a scheme for me to win the tournament. So, anyways, so yeah, today we're gonna go over ZvZ. It's a matchup that I feel like. Well, I don't know. I feel like, and maybe you can chime in here too, StRyKeR. I guess a lot of people don't love all mirror matchups, right? But I don't know if ZvZ's. I don't know. Do you like ZvZ? Do you like mirror matchups? Do you have a favorite?
I used to really dislike ZvZs.
Okay.
When I started playing, I actively avoided ZvZs because I thought it was purely random and whatever world you opened with sort of determined your fate. And I avoided it for a long time.
Yeah.
And when I got back into it afterwards, I started actually learning the matchup. And I think it is definitely more random based than other matchups, but you can definitely outplay your opponent. And if you do get a scout and once you get a scout, then it's basically pure mechanics and afterwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a skill matchup, to a larger extent than I had thought.
So
it's still my least favorite matchup, but it's a lot more deterministic than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of cool, right? Because it's I feel a lot of times, if we go through the three mirror matchups, right? There's TVT, which kind of is like chess almost. Of course build matters and stuff, build orders matter, but you can kind of play around it. I don't really know too much about TVT, but it seems like when I watch Terrans play, they can kind of play around different openings as long as they're not super all in. They might be a little behind, but the game kind of drags itself out in a lot of ways that you can kind of make up for certain deficits, especially with siege tanks at your disposal. You can play very defensive and somehow get away back into the game. I almost feel like PvP is actually a little more coin flippy after having played it a little bit. It's a little slower paced than ZvZ, right? And I feel kind of like what you said, as I kind of learn ZvZ and even as I'm in the process of learning it myself, there's so many counters you can do, but they're so minuscule, right? It's kind of like the very tiny things, oh, should I cancel speed, or should I hide this thing, or I don't know. It's kind of in the very I don't know, the details of everything where you can kind of start to show different levels of skill, right? So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. If it were truly coin flipping, then we would be able to take games off pros, right? You've hit pro Zergs on ladder. How do you do against them?
I've won games, but that's when they lose the game because of lag.
Okay.
Otherwise, I haven't won a game against a high level. Well, I've won against higher ranked players, maybe 2400.
Right.
But definitely not 2500 plus.
Yeah, it's whenever I play, I don't think I've ever beaten an amateur. I've hit them on ladder. Zealot comes to mind, right? I think I've hit him a few times on ladder. And I never win. You know, it's like you think that it's kind of coin flippy, and in some ways it is. Obviously, like the way you scout and build orders and stuff, but there's ways to maneuver even from deficits, and it's very highly like mechanical and stuff too. So I think there's still a lot to learn. It's just a matter of wanting to learn the details, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of details,
Yeah.
and that's why it's very frustrating if you mess up micro at all,
Right.
like even once during the first battle, or
Yeah.
if you make an extra drone, or if you don't make an extra drone, like
Yeah.
that could have such a big impact on the game. So
Yeah.
it's very hard. It's very hard to get right, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Cool. I guess like just to start off too, for maybe lower level Zergs, do you have your opinion on what's like a easy, good ZvZ build to play as a lower level player, or do you have any general tips for people trying to learn ZvZ?
I think 9 full speed is the most popular and probably the easiest build to start with. It's the most popular, at least from my experience. I've looked
Sure.
over my plays, and I think roughly, I would say half of them do 9 full speed.
Yeah.
Second place is like some form of 12 hatch, and then third place is pretty close, and it's like 12 pool. And then there's like afterwards there's like over gas and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
9 full speed and layer are the most popular builds, and
Yeah.
I think it's just, you have the initiative and there's nothing to macro. Like there's really no deviation in your build. You just sort of build things until
Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
later, and you build a spire, right? So
Right.
there's not many mistakes you can make on a build order basis
Yeah.
once you choose to do it. I mean, you might already be behind based on your build order choice,
Right.
but like, there's very few variations to it, and it's really just based on micro and scouting once
Sure.
you decide to do the build. So I think it's a fairly easy build to start with.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of cool because like some percentage of the time you just win immediately, right? Like once you scout 12 hatch, or most of the time you should win in that situation. So it's kind of nice, like, oh, they won 12 hatch, I just win, and then move on to the next one. So if you're trying to like up your MMR, it's nice to kind of have like those easy, quick free wins.
And we should go over that too, because it's
Yeah.
definitely possible to lose against 12 hatch if you don't
Yeah.
do the thing initially when you get to their base. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so I like 9 full speed as like a ladder build myself. I know like Crossy also likes to go 9 full speed on ladder. And that's good, especially if you have like good micro, right? Like especially if you're really good with your lings and your mutas, like fighting in early stages with low numbers, like it probably favors you more. But I don't know. I mean, there's like I said, there's no right answer, guys. Like I've heard people wanting to say like 12 pool speed's nice because it's kind of like a middle of the road build. I do feel that 12 pool has a lot of nuances, right? Don't you think? Like, because you have to like defend air, you have to defend ground.
I think
Yeah.
it's it's probably one of the hardest builds, actually.
Yeah, I think
It's
so too. Yeah.
one of the most all-around builds. It's kind of like the equivalent of like the most standard build in ZvZ.
Yeah.
And I think that's the build you do if you want to just kind of be all-around good, like
Yeah.
all in lings if you want to, but then macro otherwise, do spores if you want, or go layer first
Right.
and do spire if you want. There's like so many options that you can choose from.
Yeah.
It's a very all-around build, but as a result, it's hard to do because you have to know which one is the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I think today we're not going to like particularly go over one build. We're just going to go over kind of 3 different replays. And the cool thing about ZvZ is like if we go over one build on one side, we can learn the build on the other side because it's ZvZ. So you kind of knock out 2 build orders in one replay. So we're just going to kind of go over concepts. We're not going over here's how you make a 9 pool and 9 gas and 6 lings. It's just talking over kind of the reasoning and stuff. I guess like one thing before we also jump into the replays is like a lot of like newer players might ask like how come all ZvZs look the same? Like why you know what I mean? Like why is it always lings and mutas? Like have you ever dabbled with other builds and other units like hydras and stuff?
I think the general idea is that hydras are inferior as a strategy versus the lings and mutas, but you don't see hydras on ladder sometimes. Like people would like purposely do a clown build to throw you off, and
Yeah.
if you don't respond correctly, then yeah, you'll lose to Hydras.
Right.
Or if someone is so behind that they can't go to lair, so then they build like a ton of spores and go like they're forced to go Hydras or something.
Right. Yeah.
So from time to time, I never have really done Hydras.
Yeah.
So I think the consensus is that basically, if the Muta opener just has more map control,
Yeah. Yeah.
decide to expand if you want, and
Right.
just really has more initiative.
Yeah.
And the Hydra player just has to kind of sit back for a while, sort of like Marines before
Yeah.
stim in range. Like
Yeah.
you can't come to your base before you have stim in range.
Right.
Hydra upgrades are more expensive and Hydras are slower, so it's tougher to get out as well.
Right. Yeah, every now and then I see it. I mean, I've done a few kind of clowny Hydra builds, and to be fair, I think like at the foreigner level and below, right? Like, you could probably get away with some Hydra builds, right? Like, and it's not because that it's necessary. I'd say in my opinion, it's a dominated build. Like, if you get to a high level, like if anybody sees a Hydra build in a normal scenario where people are both on even ground, any pro gamer will be able to exploit that and put themselves in a position of advantage, right? Versus like, I don't know, like if you're the better player or you're pulling out a Hydra build against somebody that doesn't know how to counter you, then you could win. And that might happen. Like, if you're in the foreign scene or you're in CPL, you're like a B rank player and you want to pull it off, I bet you can make it work sometimes, right? So, when we say that it's kind of an inferior build, we kind of mean that more in the pro scene. So if it's something that you want to play, you can definitely do it. I've seen Gorinich do it a couple times in BSL. He's a pretty good player, so it could work, but it's not like I said, I think it's definitely an inferior build. So
yeah,
right.
I mean, it's kind of thing similar to like someone who might rush Hive to go Devourers or something.
Yeah.
If you don't scout it, then yeah, you'll probably lose to it. So it's not completely unviable.
Right.
It's just if you play correctly, if you scout well and respond well, then you should have an advantage.
Exactly. Yeah. But a lot of people kind of wish that way, right? I think Zero, I mean the Polish Zero, not the pro gamer Zero, was talking about like, didn't he want to do like a tournament with like ZvZ tournament with no mutas or something? Like that would sound crazy. Like what would that even look like? It's like just Hydras and Lurkers. Well, you don't have to go Lurkers, right?
Probably just a lot of Lings. Then
true. Yeah. Probably because you can't get around the fact that there's always gonna be 9-pull and stuff. So a lot of Lings. I don't know. I don't know how you deal with Lurkers, right? Like, how do you deal with mass Lurkers? I guess Zerg has nothing to beat Lurkers.
Probably like Hydra Lurk or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be like a match game probably.
It would be kind of funny. Yeah, it'd be really funny because if you're sitting on a ramp with like 4 Lurkers, like Zerg can't come up that ramp, right? Like they have to bust up with like ultras and stuff. So I guess there'd be a lot of like funny Niduses or drops and stuff, but it'd be kind of interesting because they don't really have. I guess broodlings, right? Oh.
Yeah, it'd be very different, obviously, since mutas are sort of like the go-to.
Yeah.
Units in the current meta. So.
Yeah, and also I remember I think it was like Ariador or someone said this, but like you can't deal with queens if you don't have any mute. I guess you can make Scourge, but like if queens are just flying around like over water and over cliffs, they'll just keep like broodling and stuff, and you don't have like an answer to that. So it'll be kind of flawed, but it'll be kind of fun if that ever happened. So. All right, so I think that's cool. We just want to talk a little bit about ZvZ in general. We're gonna get into the first replay, and I believe this is 12-pull speed versus 9-pool speed, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And I guess we'll start with the 9-pool side, or should we do the 12-pool first?
We can just do 12-pool first.
Okay, so that's on the left side. That's me. Okay, so left side, and usually if you do 12-pool, if you do anything but 9-pool, you usually scout towards the nat first.
Right.
And the idea is that you want to be able to scout their build, and if you scout their nat, then you see the hatchery or you don't see the hatchery, so that already tells you a little bit something about what they're doing. Yeah. Usually as a 9-pooler on this map, I actually would scout the opposite way. So if I were doing 9 pool at bottom left, I would scout to the right side, not my top side.
Yeah.
The reason being, if I'm doing 9 pool speed, I don't particularly care what my opponent does. I just want to get to his base. Because it's basically impossible to be more aggressive than me, right? Unless it's like a 5 pool or a 7 pool, but 9 pool dominates both those builds.
Right.
So I'm really not worried about anything. I'm not worried about if he's doing 12 pool or 12 hatch. Like, the nuances are not important. All I care about is where is he. So the reason I would go to bottom right is I would expect my opponent, if he were at top left, to scout to bottom right. Like, if he's top left and doing 12 pool or something, he would just scout bottom right. So by the time my lings are out, I would see his overlord come down to my net, right?
Yep.
So that I see his overlord, then I know he's at top left.
Right.
On the other hand, if I see on the bottom right that he's not there, and I see no overlord coming from the top left, then he's likely top right.
Right, like he's a diagonal from you. So it's kind of just like you're using your overlord scout to go in the opposite direction, and then you assume that your opponent is scouting in the right direction, and then you use those two pieces of information to kind of come to the conclusion that they're on the other side if you don't see it, right? Now, is it possible that your opponent's also doing the same thing? Yeah, but, you know, it's just, you're playing the odds. So in this case,
you're more likely to get that information correct.
Right, right. As you can see, even like this guy, right, but both of these players are scouting vertically. And so in this game, right now, from orange player's perspective, he actually doesn't know where his opponent is, right? Because he has to make a decision to go diagonal or, you know, horizontal.
Yeah. So one thing I'll note here is that if I actually were at top right, for example, my overlord would be at his net, right? And I would see things coming out of the net.
Yep.
And the timing here is important. If his lings are coming down his ramp at 225, this is a 9 pool.
Yep.
So if he comes like later or isn't coming out, you know it's not a 9 pool, or he might be saving lings. That happens from time to time. But remember, it's good to remember the timing because that's very important in how you respond to this.
Right.
And in addition, sometimes the bases are close enough where you can actually scout the hatchery before 240. I believe that's when the layer is started for speed. So if you scout at say 220 and there's no layer, then I mean you're probably never going to get there that early. But if you get there before 240 and he has no layer, that means he went speed first.
Yeah.
You get there.
No, so how does so I guess you're a 12 puller here, right? So you went 12 pull, you know, gas, and then expansion with hatchery, and looks like you're making lings, right? So in this scenario, you don't have any scouting information, right? But if you knew he was going, you know, 9 pull because you saw his lings come out, does that change your build?
Not yet.
Okay.
With 12 pull, you almost always build 6 lings unless you actually scout that he went 12 hatch or something, or he went 12 pull. If he was top left and I saw him build a hatchery, then I might build a drone or two. Because I know he's also not doing the 9 pool, right?
Yeah.
But now I have no information. So given no information, I would just always make 6 lings.
Yep.
Because there's no reason for me to not make 6 lings here.
Right.
So yeah.
And then you're opening speed, right?
Yes. By default, I will open speed, specifically because of the possibility of a 9 pool speed.
Yeah.
If you don't get speed and go layer first, you could just lose the game outright against speedlings.
Right.
Because he will sort of like dance around your net and like attack your hatchery, and like when you chase him, he'll like go around and try to surround you and stuff. Like, I think if you have perfect micro, it'd be possible to defend, but I think it'd be really hard without speed. So that's why, if you don't have any information, like speed is a much safer option.
Right. Okay, so it looks like your opponent scouts the overlord here.
Yeah, so my opponent now knows that I am bottom left. And the unfortunate thing is I don't actually know whether it's pool like 9 pool layer or 9 pool speed. So I see his link here, and the timing works out so that like there's no way this is not a 9 pool. Like the link here this early. Yeah. So I already know that it's a 9 pool, so I already know that I have to defend it. But now my response changes depending on whether it's 9 pool layer or 9 pool speed.
Okay. So you're going to defend. You know it's 9 pool because of the timings, and you also have to bring drones, like 2, 3 drones, or how many drones do you usually bring?
Yeah, so against 9 pool layer, you don't need to bring any drones. So this is why it's a little tricky, and it's a little bit based on luck. If you
Right.
bring drones out like this, and he only went 9th pool layer, then it's a loss for you because you're
Right.
not mining these.
Mhm.
But if you don't bring them out and it's 9th pool speed, you'll probably just lose outright.
Right. Yeah.
If he has micro.
Yeah.
And the reason is that with 9th pool layer, the speed comes at the same time as your speed, so he's not going to be able to maneuver you.
Yeah.
And the link count is actually equal because it takes time for him to get to your base. There's a defender's advantage there.
Yep.
So the only issue is when he has speed and when you don't, because then his follow-up links will be earlier than your follow-up links.
Right.
And because of that, you're going to be at a disadvantage in number. So that's why you bring drones out against 9 pool speed.
Mm-hmm.
And the other issue is that 9 pool layer, they usually stop at 8 links and drone up for the rest.
Yeah.
Because they want a slightly better eco for Spire and Mutus.
Yeah.
And so that's why you also don't need to bring out drones. But anyway,
Right.
in this case, I don't have any vision. I
Yep.
wanted to play safe. And my Overlord scouts that there's 2 extra links, so it's 8 already.
Yeah.
It still doesn't give me confidence that it's speed, but that's what I was assuming.
Yep. I also noticed that you pulled 2 drones off gas. Is that something that you normally do against 9 pool speed?
Right. You definitely want to pull off gas, not minerals. If you keep it on gas, you're not going to use it anyway. Like you're not going to go to lair anytime soon because you're going to be making lings, and if you go lair, you're just not going to have money to build a spire. So there's really no point in throwing away 150 minerals and 100 gas, just for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say keep a drone there or no drones even.
Right.
And you want at least 2 drones out to defend. You can have more if you want to be even more sure.
Mm-hmm.
But this is actually a very tricky micro.
Yeah.
You ideally want drones to be slightly in front of your lings so that they act as a wall, because if they don't target fire your drones and they attack move, they actually try to go around your drones and attack the high priority lings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes them bug out a little bit.
Yeah.
But of course, they could also target your drones, in which case you have to quickly click them and send them to a mineral field in your main so that they get out of danger. So yeah, it just requires a lot of precision, and it requires a lot of it. So here, I have to pull that drone back.
Yeah.
And so that was actually a pretty good fight for me because he actually took more damage than my piece.
So here you're just trying to play very conservatively, lose as little as you can, because presumably as as your hatchery finishes, you're gonna have the production to start fighting back, right?
Right. So you can see how just that slight advantage I got when he tried to hit my drone earlier allowed me to get a few extra hits on him, and that was all it took for me to dominate that battle afterwards.
Right.
You can see now that I just have way more lings than he does.
Yep.
And I can probably bring back my drones, but I've quite often made the mistake of pulling back the drones too early, so I'm playing a little bit safer than normal.
Right.
Especially because I can always miss micro, and I have some hurt lings.
Right.
But by the time I have speed, which is very soon, should be now. Yeah, I have speed now. I pull them back, and now you have double the production that he does.
Yep.
So if you're on equal link count, or if you're behind on lings, it's fine because now you're just going to outproduce him.
Right. Okay, so let's pause here really quick. So basically what you're trying to say is that for 12 pool, and I guess from the 9 pool perspective, right? They have a small window where they can actually just win the game right there, right? If they get a good surround on you with speed and then your drones are out of position, you could just lose. So I think what you're trying to say is okay, I'm gonna bring these drones out for safety. You're already up in drone count anyways. You have another hatchery, whereas they have 1 hatchery, so it's okay to kind of pull those drones and just make sure you don't die. And once your hatchery and your speed finishes, now he's the one that's scared, right? Because you have double ling production, you have more drones. He just has a faster tech. So I see that now that you have your speed, you're making some more lings here. So what's kind of your perspective? It looks like he's running back home. What are kind of your options as a 12 pool player?
Right. So yeah, going back a little bit, the most dangerous part of a 12 pool against 9 pool speed is between 330 and 340.
Okay.
And in those 10 seconds there sort of decide the entire game.
Okay.
The reason being is that it's right before your speed kicks in, and it's when he has the most lings. So he'll have 12 lings at your net. That's the best time for him to attack. You'll have 10 lings and 2 drones versus his 12 lings. So it's basically a micro battle.
Right.
You should be favored if you do it correctly, but yeah, that's the most important part of this whole matchup in the build orders.
Right.
But yeah, after you survive this period, and I survived it actually very, very with an advantage. So this is a game for me to lose here.
Right. And so are you here? So do you generally like to go kind of like Ling mass flood from this kind of situation, or do you like to drone? What's kind of the determining factors there? Like just depending on how the fight goes.
Yeah. Regardless of what your actual intentions are, you should always try to pretend that you are trying to do an all-in like Ling push to force a sunk. Because 9-pool speed into Spire is a very poor economic build because he's building so many Lings with speed so early with tech as well. So if you force him to make a sunk, that's even more of a hit economically.
Right.
So you want him to be afraid that you'll just all in Ling him, and you have double the production. So like, you know, you can swamp in easily if you actually did all go all in. So you want to like make the motion of moving out. But you know, some 9-pool players will see through this and like backstab you, and then it's not a base trade because you don't have enough to actually like, kill him. And some 9-poolers will like quickly make a sunk and then backstab you. So then when you go to his base, you can't beat him, but then he backstabs you. So there's like mind games going on, and you have to make sure that you have to sort of scout and like feel him out and stuff. But you definitely have the upper hand here in terms of aggression, and you want to take advantage of that.
Yeah. Okay. So it seems like here you're going in. He's trying to like run away, maybe force a counter, maybe trying to buy some time, right?
Yeah. He's trying to like save some Lings for a counter, but you know, it's always good to like leave a few Lings back at your base. I would say like 4, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
If you don't have a good scout on his Lings, and so you know he's you know not playing super risky. He's building a sunk in his base, which totally makes sense. Like especially since he wants to counter me with like 5 Lings. There's no way he, you know, you'd have to have like gigantic balls to like do this without making a sunk. And hope I actually like don't counter him.
Yeah, I kind of like this, you know, that you're defending back at home, because one of the ways you could lose is by like Ling counterattacks coming in and just ravaging your mineral line. You know, and that's what he's doing. He wants you to be focused up here while he's going for a counter, but you're already prepared for that.
Right. And you can see I actually made drones behind this. So I think it's not terrible to make Lings, because then you actually, if you actually do make a lot more Lings, you do need a trade, because otherwise like they're going to go to waste when mutas are out. So you do want to sort of like force a trade if you have a lot of Lings. But here I made drones because I forced a sunk, and you know, I don't know I forced a sunk, but you know I
probably So when do you get the Evo chamber against a build like this?
Right. So the timings here you have to memorize. There's really no way around it. 9-pool speed. The Spire finishes at a 505. Full gas. Over gas. Spire finishes at 445. 9-pool layer. Spire finishes at 435. 12-pool layer, I believe, finishes at 520. 12 hatch speed. There's like a lot of timings. And I'll probably repeat these when I go builds from their perspective. If you start your Evo chamber when the Spire finishes, you will have spores in time.
Okay, so that's like if people don't know like all of the timings and stuff. I guess in this game you don't have like vision in his base like with the Overlord, but you know it's 9-pool speed, so you also know that's finishing at 505 or whatever, right? So as long as you start the Evo chamber right as it finishes, you'll have spores in time.
Yeah, so I actually would recommend generally keeping an Overlord in his base, especially if you have an advantage. Like, I started with a pretty good advantage, like lost no drones. Even didn't really lose that many Lings. So sometimes they like only make Lings. You know, they like trick you. They like, oh, force 4 spores, and like you're like trying to defend against mutas, and then they show up with like 20 Lings. So I actually would recommend myself even to keep an Overlord in his base. But if you're playing blind, you don't need to actually worry too much about the timings, because you know, like, if they're a good player, they're going to optimize for it. And the earliest time to Spire for 9-pool speed is in the 505, right? And this guy, almost to the dot, finishes Spire at 506, 507, right?
508,
So my Evo chamber is a little early, but you know, I did whatever, you know. As long as you know it's 505, it's fine. You don't need to make it at 540, like 510. If you make it at 515, it's too late. If you make it at 5 or 445, that's too early, you know.
It seems like you also have like a lot of drones. Your economy is pretty good. I think one determination is kind of like sometimes I see people going 3 spores or 4 spores, and I notice that's actually a pretty big factor, especially if you're the other guy, because for each spore that you're making, it's really expensive for a Zerg player. If you go like 4 spores, it's going to slow down your Spire. So what was kind of your thinking here? I mean, and also one thing in ZvZ, you have to learn your SimCities, right? Like you have to learn where to like put your spore colonies, and I like how your placements are because there's no area where your opponent can attack that doesn't also get like defended. There might be some small holes about the mineral line and stuff, but
yeah.
So any comments there?
Yeah, SimCity, one at your ramp and one at your mineral line and your nats.
Yeah.
That can cover ideally the gas and all your minerals. And on CB, it's actually pretty good because I believe this spore can essentially cover the entire mineral field and the gas. And you need the one down at your ramp because if they camp your ramp, you're not going to be able to like defend against the Ling run by.
Right. Yeah.
So you need at least 2 at your net. In your main, you can get away with 1 because you can sort of defend the entire region with 1.
Right.
To be safe, I would generally recommend building 2, especially against 9-pool speed because they're so. Against 9-pool layer, it's kind of iffy. If you delay your Spire too much against 9-pool layer, you could actually end up very behind. But 9-pool speed, typically you can afford to like make a second spore in your main. But I guess this game, I felt like I didn't need one because my Spire was actually super early. Spire is usually not this early against 9-pool speed, but because of my huge advantage in the early game, I actually got it down. So I figured I would defend Mutas with Spire. The issue is that, you know, number one, they could pick off drones. But, you know, you can like move them aside for a bit and prevent that. The other issue is if they like build up to 7-8 Mutalisks, they could just take out your Spire and kill your base. But...
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where the scouting part happens, right? Because it's like, I guess from this point on, you know, you opted to go 3 Spore, faster Spire, and that's kind of a product of like, you know, you felt like you were kind of ahead in the beginning, so maybe you can kind of get away with it. Like, I feel like from this position, like a player might be like, well, I don't know what to do. Do I make Lings? Do I just wait till Mutas? Should I get my second gas? Like, what are you, like, what's your mindset here? Are you trying to play defensive until you bank up? What are you worried about from the opposing player? Because you see 3 Mutas, right? So, like, do you have to go scout, or what do you do from this point?
Yeah, I should be sending a link to his nat to see if he's taking a nat, because usually if they try to take a nat, you're not going to see like a massive Ling Muta all-in.
Right.
And that informs what you need to do. If you don't see a nat at like past 6 or 6:30, then you should build second or even third spores in your base.
Yeah.
And possibly even Lings and a sunk. Just so you know, the scouting does matter here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I always kind of think about it from like the Zerg perspective, like the one base perspective. There's like usually 3 kind of scenarios here, right? They could go one base all Mutas, right? And then they could like maybe bank up to like 8 or 9 and just snipe this spore colony and destroy you in your main, right? They could go 5 Mutas and try to like snipe drones while they take an expansion themselves, or they could like flood you with Lings, right?
And oh yeah, this is a mini game in ZvZ because the common routes will be like guarded by Mutas and Lings. So in a weird roundabout way. Like you saw my Ling go all the way to the center and then down. That's because I wanted to prevent him from cutting me off. Yeah,
it's good. So it looks like you got here. You see some fair amount of Lings, no expansion, right? So what are you thinking now?
So I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of late. I see a decent amount of Lings. I'm like slightly worried, so I start making a little more Lings.
Okay.
But my Spire's done already, so I'm actually not going to make any more spores here.
Okay. Yeah. So because you had an earlier Spire, you just got anti-air instead of getting... I mean, you just got Mutas instead of just making another spore. But if you didn't have your Spire up, maybe it's a good time to make a second spore, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Even a third spore sometimes, because it's like sometimes they go all in Muta. Like they could snipe 2 spores.
Right, yeah. You know, you should definitely always favor Mutas over spores. But if you don't have Mutas, you need to bake extra spores, or you know, with this late of an expo, you might just get killed by Mutas. And you can see that he has 6 right now.
Yep.
And you know, luckily I was able to see his nat, so I know that it's not an all-in of any sort. But it doesn't matter anyway because I have Mutas out now. I actually have 4 already. He only has 6. So this is how ahead I was since the early game. Yeah.
So I mean, from here, like, he's not going all in. You didn't waste that money on spores. You have an early Muta. I feel like from this game, you know you have the advantage economically, so you really shouldn't throw it away. So is that kind of your mindset? You're just gonna bank up Mutas and just go later?
Yeah, it's important to know who has the advantage
Right.
because if you have the advantage, you should sort of sit back and gather up mutas
Yep.
because the gas income rate is sort of fixed no matter how many more
Yeah.
drones you make.
Right.
It's fixed at 3 per gas rate. So if you sort of have an economic advantage, that can only stay the same, right? So
Right.
if you keep producing, you're always going to be like, what, like X mutas ahead of the opponent.
Right.
And the opponent is going to feel like he needs to do something to catch up to your
Right.
account, to
Yep.
your army.
Yep.
So if you're ahead, like I am here, you sort of just sit back and like
Yeah.
make mutas.
Is there
And
like a specific timing by which? I mean, are you waiting for your +1 or how do I know? Or do you just keep scouting with like your lings? Like when do I actually go attack?
yeah, so I see a question names TB says, how do you decide mutas or scourge? You should almost never make scourge as your first units
Yeah.
because like good players will always just pick them off. Like if
Right.
you're only attacking with scourge, there's players who will like flat scourge into your main and that because they're relying on you not to micro or something.
Right. Yeah.
And like, yeah, good players will just pick them off and they're just free, right? They're just free
Yeah.
money for you. So
I mean, you could make like if it's some sort of weird scenario where like mutas are flying at your base, like and there's
Yeah.
only like 2 of them or something, like 1 or 2, and you just need a scourge right away. Like it's not a wrong to like just get 1 and then the rest mutas or something like that, like in an urgent scenario. But when you have the opportunity to make mutas, you should always make mutas because you want the opportunity to be able to micro, harass, and kind of build up that ball.
right. So now this is a 11 muta is a good timing actually because like the funny thing is that we're all limited mechanically because we have just
Yeah.
human reaction times and stuff.
Right.
So
Right.
it could be counterproductive to get more than 11. So
Yeah.
what a lot of players like to do is get up to 11, you group it with an overlord, and then they make the rest scourge, and then you
Yeah.
go to make a fight. So 11 mutas with like 12 scourge or something, and
Yeah.
that fight essentially determines who wins the game.
Right.
Like a gentleman's agreement of some sort. And not
Yeah.
really, it's more like
Yeah.
a mechanic, like a physical limitation agreement.
Right.
And I would do this typically, but I guess like I didn't really feel the need to rush to do
Yeah.
that because I had an advantage. So I just kept making mutas. And, you know, at some point you can just A move with like 20, 30 mutas and you don't need micro as much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't really press for time here. So I'm just kind of playing it more chill, not really
Yeah.
the issue really.
And I think I think a lot of it is because you're just like you as the better player kind of know like where you are, and I feel like the difficulty sometimes is like when people don't know where they are, so they kind of feel like the pressure to go. I mean, I think one good timing to watch out for is like maybe you just time it after your +1 finishes because you know they can't have +2. I mean, he's ahead of you on upgrades, so
I was going to say that. Like, I think I was waiting for +1 because why take a inefficient fight?
right.
Because he's likely at +1 before me because he has Spire before me, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, there's no you're already ahead, no downside in waiting for that +1, and you definitely have a better eco. So I take hatchery at the same time here.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one kind of like really important point to know in ZvZ is that the optimal like production for mutas on 2 bases is 9 drones on minerals and 6 drones on gas, right? Like if you have 10 drones on minerals and 6 drones on gas, you're not going to make any more mutas than the guy who has 9 drones. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you're basically all in there because you're not going to increase your economy at all. But yeah,
Right.
you would be able to fight against the other guy's army.
Right. So like, I mean, here it's basically this fight's over. I mean, StRyKeR's gonna win this, but I mean, just kind of going back to the main base.
I'll just like commentate on the actual micro
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
real quick. So this is also one of the most hard things about this matchup is the Muto micro.
Right.
I believe I have like, the hotkeys aren't him, but I have 11 mutas on one control group with an overlord.
And you have 5. You have 5 on the other one.
Oh, you're actually me and I'm the blue player. Okay, so
Yeah.
I have mutas on 1 and 2, and I think 3 is Surge. Is that right?
You have 11 and 1, and then you have 5 mutas, and then you have 8 scourge.
3, and then 4. What's my number 4?
Pool.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So the dance here is basically you wanna go after his mutas with your scourge.
Yeah.
And go after his scourge with your mutas.
Right.
And prevent him from doing the vice versa.
Right.
So it's this weird dance where like the mutas are not really attacking each other, but attacking like kind of chased after by scourge.
Yeah. And the Scourge is kind of like the shield, right? Because once the Scourge are like in this situation, you get free shots off because your opponent's trying to pick off the Scourge, right? And so you can kind of moving shot and like start hitting them off. So like, we don't really see the dance here, but I think like if you watch pros play, you might see kind of this weird thing where like they intentionally don't pop their Scourges like right when they get to like their opponent's Scourges because it's kind of like a shield. And as like a Zerg player, you always want to, you know, like pick off the Scourge. So it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know. We kind of have like this little, I think StRyKeR made like this Muta micro map that's like super cool. And so what happens is that like when your opponent's mutas come in sight, you like launch the Scourge towards their mutas, right? And then you start walking away with your mutas, and then you micro against their Scourge. But if they run away, then you run your Scourge away too, right? So it's kind of like this really funny thing where like the goal is to like take out their Scourge, not really the muta. At least when you have both mutas and Scourges, right?
Right, and then if you have a Scourge advantage, you basically use them as a meat shield, not even as like a damage dealer, because they're going to be so focused on killing your Scourge that your mutas behind it will just get free attacks.
Yeah, and that's interesting, right? Because it's like at like a lower level, or when I used to not like actually play, I don't know, micro really well, like I kind of just 1A, 2A, 3A, and I just like pop all the Scourges, and sometimes like 6 Scourge like pop to like one of their Scourges, and then I lose my advantage, right? So it's like kind of ironic where sometimes you want your Scourges on move command, like chasing your mutas, and you don't want them to pop. So it's like, it's very intricate. It's kind of like so weird how like these kamikaze units, you don't want them to pop unless they can get good shots, and otherwise they're kind of just your shield.
Yeah, it's one of the things that makes me think that if an AI optimized the control for, then it would just destroy human players like so badly.
Yeah. Because it's just like they would like each of like the Scourge would just kind of like, you know, walk away and get close and stuff, and like the human player would never be able to like actually chase it. Yeah.
And team melee with like one player on each unit or something like that.
Yeah, that would be crazy. So, all right, cool. So that was
should we look at the opposite perspective or no? I guess we covered it.
Yeah, we sort of did. Yeah, let's just go on to the next one. But if you guys have questions, we're happy to answer them in real time or kind of in between replays as well. So be sure to ask kind of your ZvZ questions and whatnot. And then if not, we'll just kind of move on to the next replay.
Okay, which one should I go to next?
I think we had I forget, what was it? I get all the builds kind of mixed up. We can do 9-pull layer against 12-pull speed.
Okay.
Because that's a little different. So it's like kind of similar, where we just went over 12-pull speed against 9-pull speed. But now let's see what it looks like if it's 9-pull layer into 12-pull speed.
So 9-pull layer is a pretty good opener. It's also fairly safe.
Yeah.
Even though the links come out as early as 9-pull speed, it's not, you know, as much of an economic hit to you.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you can easily kill. You have a huge advantage against 12 hatch. You might not be able to end the game outright, but the tech advantage you have will be pretty huge.
Right.
And also, I like the Zerg. Who's the semi-pro who's like who was in the ASL recently? Why do I?
Jaeyun?
Yeah, Jaeyun. Yeah, he's a big fan of it. I've watched his stream a couple times.
Yeah.
And he's a master of that. Managing the 9-pull layer opener, like he's really good. And he thinks that it's actually fairly even against 12-pull opener.
12-pull? Yeah, I can kind of see that because you get such a fast like tech, right? But your economy is like actually not so bad because you kind of make I think you make like 8 lings, right? And then you drone, and then if you need more lings, you make it as you scout, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like your economy is actually not so bad with 9-pull layer because you're kind of playing more of a defensive style. So in some ways, it kind of lends itself to being able to harass with your mutas and then expanding after because you still have like a pretty healthy drone count. Now, this is all assuming your opponent doesn't like ling all in you and stuff that kind of saps your drones. But anyways, for reference, in this replay, I think StRyKER's the teal Zerg at the bottom left going 9-pull gas, and then the opposing some ladder Zerg going 12-pull speed, right?
Right, and you can see on this map there's no opposite search. Opposite search doesn't make as much of a sense because, like, you're not going to be. They're not going to be going to your opposite net if that makes sense. Like, if I scouted 11, like I'm just going to meet his overlord.
Right.
Like his overlord's not going to come from 5 o'clock. Like his
Right.
normal search is going to be coming from 5 o'clock. So, if I actually went 11, I'd be getting redundant information about the fact that he's at
Right.
11.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So it seems like the build's very standard. You got your layer first, right? You took a drone off gas. So you only take one drone off gas while you do this?
Yeah. The only difference between 9-pole and 9-pole layer, 9-pole speed is that with 9-pole speed you get the gas immediately. With 9-pole layer you get it at around 70 or 80.
Yep.
This way you get the layer right as the gas hits 100.
Okay. So let's actually pause here. So when you have 9-pole layer, you're just moving out with your links, because it seems like if I take off the vision from the opponent, you don't know where he. Well, you do know. You know he's at top left, right? Because you saw his overlord. You're going there. Even though you don't have speed and you only have 8 lanes, you still going? Why is that?
So this is a little bit risky for sure,
Yeah.
but the alternative is to stay home and sort of feel out whether it's 9-pole speed or not. Because if you meet a 9-pole speed mid map and he gets speed, you're basically done.
Right.
But number one, even if he does, you have some time because 9-pole speed finishes at 310.
Yeah.
And if you meet him at the middle of the map at like 240, then you can still run away and be home.
Yeah, so it's really important that you're like looking with your lings to make sure you're not meeting lings. Because like at this point, I'm pretty sure it's not 9-pole, right? I mean, I guess they could still be a little bit ahead, but if you had it been 9-pole, you would have seen it. Unless they like go around, sometimes they do that.
Yeah, and like I think a good player would usually do that, and that's the risk to take. And unfortunately, I think it's tough because you either stay home and play defensively,
right,
which gives an edge to builds like 12-pole and even 12-hatch.
Yeah,
if you do that.
Right.
So
but if
playing blind definitely has its drawbacks, and this is one of the things where sort of his first scout, which is totally random, right, based on random luck, gives him a huge advantage in this situation.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go. So you still have to. I think you still have to attack because like you still want to get your advantage against 12-hatch, right? And you still want to like force.
So I'm pretty sure that it's an overlord opening.
Right. Okay.
And
this is nice.
And this is great because I see he brought three drones, not even 2. So back at home, he doesn't know that I went layer first, right? Because I think his overload arrived after 240. So he actually doesn't know whether it was speed or layer first.
Right.
So when I see this, I'm feeling pretty good because I've built drones after 8 lanes.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess like this is kind of the similar scenario back then, like the game before, right, where your opponent went 9-pole speed, but this time you went layer. So for every second that the drone stays out there, you like this, right?
Yeah. So I'm sort of pretending that I'm going to all in him, making his drones not work and stuff. But at some point I have to pull back, right? Because once he starts running to my base, then if I can't get a wall up, then it could be really bad. Yeah.
So his lead speed's going to finish in about like 20 seconds or so, right?
Yeah. So one thing to keep in mind, his speed and my speed will finish at the same time. Like 12-pole speed finishes at the same time as 9-pole layer speed if they're if he goes speed first.
Right. Okay. All right. So you forced out a few drones. You're feeling pretty good, right? I mean, he does have a base. You don't really know what he's doing, so you're just gonna set up a wall. I mean, you're just waiting for him to attack before you like make a sunken or something?
Yeah, so I'm scouting around with my ling, right?
Yep.
So I see that he has some lings. I'm trying to see if he's making that. Sometimes you can cancel speed just to get a slightly better economic advantage. I recommend keeping speed against 2 base builds because you want to scout for an all-in. And I see a lot of drones. I see like a second patch. I like don't see a layer. So I'm pretty safe here. Like I don't need to make sunk. I don't need to make any more lings. Like I just drone up and then make mutas and expand basically.
Yeah. And that's huge because if you save money on a sunken colony, like every drone really matters. So that scout was really good because you saw so many things, and I don't know, he's kind of playing a little weird with like so many drones and not even going layer there. So it's a little unique, but it's always important to just kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, I think he emphasized his economy here because like the late tech means that I'm just gonna have just a huge muta advantage.
Right.
And I'm gonna in his base for a while. So yeah, and
Okay.
it also make four spores, possibly even more, right? Because there's a threat that I might just kill him with mutas.
Yeah. So in this scenario, are you? It looks like you're trying to expand, so you kind of want to play the longer game, right? It's not kind of like your plan to, you know, like kill him with the mutas or something, right?
Yeah. So one thing I could have done, and it could work, especially because this guy wasn't scouting very well.
Yeah.
Just make all lings
Yeah.
and all in all in him, because he was droning really hard.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I chose to play economically, and I think I'm still fine here. Because look at all the and spores he has to build, because he has no
Oh my
tech.
gosh, yeah.
Like, yeah, and I didn't even need to like build extra things, and I got all these.
Oh my gosh, this is like so deadly. It's always nice if you can run the lings in like this, and your like mutas kind of camp the ramp where they stay away from the spores, so that you can kind of like kill reinforcements. But this is like catastrophic, and I guess this guy's build is a little funny.
Yeah. So this is one of the tactics. Like ZvZ is, large. The build order matters, but the tactics are huge.
Yeah.
Sort of like in chess, like, yeah, sure, positional play is like important, but if you don't have tactics, you're just going to lose every position, even if you're ahead.
Yeah.
So this is one of the tactics you can use. Like, you just do a run by when he has no mutas, because once you hold the ramp, he can't reinforce with his lings.
Yeah.
From his net. So now he's like building lings. He like lost mining time and Oh, the one thing you have to watch out is that because he has extra link production, he can always backstab you with like his other set of links. So I always like to keep at least a couple mutas back at home, specifically against this possibility.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good multitasking to be able to do this, but yeah, it's good to keep in mind, because you a lot of times you can just lose your nat hatch because you were just concentrated too much on attacking and harassing him.
Right. I guess like here it's a little tough. I mean, I guess you could with 5 mutas. It's also a good idea to like look for weak spots to like snipe drones. I mean, he has 5 spores, which is kind of a lot. Kind of tough. I guess there's like a couple of angles where you can maybe start sniping, but it looks like you kind of try that, but also didn't expect that many drones, but spores. I'm sorry. But it's always good because every drone you like snipe off is like a big deal. And 5 is the magic number to one-shot the drones. So it looks like here you kind of opted to say, okay, like he over defended. I'm just gonna take my expansion. I'm gonna take my muta and gas lead. I'm gonna have an upgrade lead, and I'm gonna match my economy because he can't kill you, right? He can only make lings, right? But lings don't shoot up. So looks like you're just kind of playing the longer game here.
Yeah, at this point he has a lot of lings on the map, so you have to sort of be careful here and spend some time making sure that you don't get like countered, which I am getting countered here, but my mutas were close by, so I'm not going to take too much damage. I think you can also play safe here and build a sunk at your net.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff, because you're already ahead in terms of tech, and you're actually, my drone count is only 2 below his, so my econ isn't that bad either. So one thing to keep in mind is that he has to make up 7 larvae to catch up to your muta count, right?
Right.
So even if you made all drones from here, like if you use the next 7 larvae on drones, you'll still be even like on a UI.
Yeah, and you're gonna have your upgrade a lot faster too. So I think like as long as you just get your upgrade before their spires, then you're always gonna be ahead that way.
Yeah. So this, I'm at a huge advantage here. Better econ, better tech, better upgrades. Yeah,
cool. I think Albert asks, doesn't the no layer incline that he go for a ling all in? What do you say to that?
But I saw the drones.
Okay.
So
yeah. So what StRyKeR was saying earlier was that he also got ling speed with this build, so that he was able to see all the drones. So, but if he even decides to go lings after that, it will be too late because the mutas would be out, right?
Right. And the lings have somewhat map control. You sort of like both have map control in some sense, but he has better mobility because his lings can be all over the place and run away and stuff. So yeah, he's gonna take a third here. I could have stopped this, but I was taking a third of my own. I didn't want to lose it, and I had the advantage anyway, so I felt like I'm just gonna play a little bit of a longer game. But I do eventually see this. I do attack it. He can't really fight me. So yeah, I'm just attacking and taking it out, and he's trying to counter my third, but I put some mutas there, and splitting up your forces is kind of risky because if you get the path wrong, you can lose both battles. But
Yeah, so I liked it. I liked how you're going for the third base because you're basically using your like economic and like army advantage because he has spores and you kind of don't want to like bust spores, right? I mean, sometimes you can, but looks like here you just want to play defensively. He's going in for the backstab, kills a lot of drones, which is like a nice little move, I guess. It's kind of like a Hail Mary.
Yeah, so like the map control you enjoy against someone who goes spores is nice, but the problem is once they have mutas, you actually have less map control because you can't leave.
Yeah.
Because he's gonna counter you, but you can't counter him. So the situations, the tables sort of turn.
Right.
And when he does a tactic like this, you have to like take out mutas, otherwise it's a pure loss on your side. And yeah,
and this is the part where you have to like moving shot like crazy, because even if he kills everything, but he loses all of his mutas. Let's see if he loses all of it. He loses, that's not good for him, because it's like he lost like 800 in resources, and you still have 3 hatcheries, unless he like does critical damage. Like usually, if you're doing that, you should probably like split your mutas up and like at least save, I don't know, a few. But losing all that is really bad.
Yeah, like I take that trade any day. Like trading 8 drones for 8 mutas, like one tip is when they're trying to dart around you, they'll like try to move in zigzags and stuff. Just like patrol attack them. So like press patrol and then click on their muta. It'll automatically like chase them without like stopping, because patrol prioritizes movement. So you patrol and attack. If you patrol and click on them, like they'll never get away from you, basically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm pretty sure from here, I mean, I guess he's gonna keep like juking and driving and stuff, but it seems pretty straightforward. I mean, it looks like you're just dominating. You have 3 bases, he has 2, you got more mutas and stuff. So anything else you want to cover here?
Let's see, there's a question, ever a scenario where you make a second hatch in main versus expo? If it's more even game, I would make a macro hatch with extra minerals, because it's very risky to take a third. Because on an even basis, like he'll just spread you apart, and you'll be spread too thin.
Yeah, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. He might be asking about like before. You know how like you were 9-pole layer, like instead of the first expansion.
Right. I think if it's a build like Overgas, where you have the minerals to do it really early, you make it. But if you have mutas out, if you have some map control, if you have enough map control to take your nat, there's no reason not to take it.
Yeah, it's. I think I guess just like to make things simple, it's like if you can do it, you do it. You know what I mean? I think in this case he had mutas out, so there's no reason why you should make the hatchery inside the base, specifically with this build. You know, there are certain scenarios where like not with this build, where you know if your opponent has more lings and you like they have more production than you don't want to like go out when they have more production, right? So in this specific build as Teal, you know, you should almost always make the hatchery like outside, unless no, I don't think there's ever a scenario where you don't. Not in this build, because you have mutas, right? You wouldn't, because it's like you either go all in, right, with mutas, or you do some, I don't know, sneaky ling all in, or you expand. There is no like, oh, I'm gonna make a hatchery inside my base against somebody who has 2 bases, because all they have to do is just get a second gas, spore up, and then just win.
Yeah. Now this guy's being a clown and like trying to steal one game. I don't have like triple the supply, but like it's pretty much over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next one. I mean, sometimes like they just love to just counter you all the time, like. You know, I don't know. It's like it's kind of funny because some people think that like if you just keep getting their drones but sacking like all of your like 800 minerals on like, you know, your like I don't know, you can't come back from that. So I think the only way to like come back is like maybe going hive tech or queen or something like that, and if your opponent doesn't notice or something. So I feel like that was the only way back. It was, but I mean, I think at a certain point it was over. So like I think there may have been a window. So like you know, I respect the tactic, but like past a certain point he was just kind of clowning. He's like, all right, I lost. I'm just gonna annoy this guy as long as I can. But I mean, I guess just like as like a follow-up question to that, like if you were in that guy's shoes, like what would you do?
If I was that behind, I would leave the game.
Okay, yeah. I mean, maybe not like towards the end, but like
when it was less clear.
Yeah.
I would try to take a Nat, and I would try to take a third and abuse the fact that I have spores and do what he was doing, but not probably send all my mutas to take out drones. Maybe to send like 3 or 5 or something.
Yeah. Sometimes your best option is also just to like hope that your opponent will like run into your base with spores and then like you just win. Sometimes that happens, right? Other times you could actually just go hive. You know, you could. You know, sometimes you could play like with devours or plague, and I've seen some. I lost to an amateur Zerg where like I was ahead the whole game and he went 2 base. Actually, I was on Medusa, so he had 3 bases. 3 base like Hydra plague, and he just like swarmed his way to my base. It was really annoying. I mean, he had like a couple of lurkers too, so like if you're super mechanically talented, you can sometimes make that work. But it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, maybe we'll do we'll do like a discussion on sort of non-standard build at some point and counter them. But next one is Overgas versus, I believe, Overgas versus 9 speed. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like 1 base versus 1 base.
Mm-hmm. I think Overgas is one of the best 1 base builds.
Yeah,
if not the best. There's some funny things with like 12 hatch in base and 12 pull in base, but I think it's pretty strong.
Right.
Especially on Stilted. There's a number of conditions I would use it on, like more often than others.
Yeah.
One of them being easy to wall Nat.
Mm-hmm.
I think diagonal ramps. Most maps have diagonal ramps, which are actually like kind of hard to wall correctly.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It has like vertical and horizontal entrances.
Yeah.
And that's like super easy to wall.
Yeah. Yeah, Sylphid's like a really nice wall. It's kind of weird. It's like, I don't know, you would think, I guess the ramps are nice because it's, I don't know. I mean, I feel like the Sylphid wall is like really clean and like tough to break. Every time I try to go in there, because it's like you can only fit like 4 or something. And that's only
it's
if...
smaller than a standard ramp. So.
Right. Yeah. I think Cyrax also asked, what's the best counter? 12 pull. DB158 says 12 hatch. Probably, right?
Probably, yeah. 12 hatch is pretty much dominating 12 pull in almost every dimension. So
right. I think the only scenario for which 12 pull could like, you know, do well, and almost, I think I heard Crossy say this, where if 12 pull scouts 12 hatch first and 12 hatch doesn't scout 12 pull, then you could make up the difference by getting like an earlier drone in an earlier layer. And then you can kind of have an advantage, but that's contingent on you scouting them first. So,
yeah. You definitely can do that if you get the scout win. So there's like three things in ZvZ. There's build order, position, and scouting.
Yeah.
You can use in one dimension, but if you get lucky in the other two, you can still you might have an advantage.
Right. Okay, so it looks like here, just kind of like to review the builds, you got the Overlord, then you got the gas, drone, and then you got a 9 pull, right?
Yeah, so gas after Overlord at 100 minerals, and you make a drone, and then you get the spawning pool, and then you make up to 11 drones, and then you take. So I like to take off gas at 186, so that at 200 I have I get layer and ling speed, and also make some ling.
Yeah. Okay.
And it allows me to have the option of like adding an earlier hatch if I need to. But so yeah, in this game, I have the scout advantage. I have the build advantage. I don't have the positional advantage because 12 o'clock Sylphid is like the best mining position of all time.
Yep.
But I see his links, so I know it's 9 pool 225. Remember the timing 225. So that's 9 pool.
Yep.
So against 9 pool, I actually don't make speed usually. Against 9 layer, it's a good idea, but I'm actually sort of counting on him going 9 pool speed at this point. But you know, I could always start speed if I need to, but I make lings first. Like you won't have money to make both lings speed and lings, but because I have 9 pool, I made lings first, and then I can later decide if I want speed.
Yep. Always like get this little wall, and surprisingly it's kind of hard to like make this wall sometimes, right? Like if you're like in a crisis situation, you kind of mess it up, but it's always good practice.
Yeah, like panic, or you sort of take a little bit. Yeah, it could be over for you. Yeah.
So in this situation, I mean, like you have a build order advantage, right? Because it's like you have a second hatchery, you got, you know, faster layer. You're just playing defense. Like, is there any point where you just like start to mass lings and start busting him, or you're just going straight to lair?
Yeah. So the so it's important to know how the builds stack up against each other, and people just when Overgas gets mutas against 9 full speed, like you're like 90-10.
Yeah.
Like 90% favor. There's no, like, he can't catch up to you. It's gonna be two hatchery production against 1.
Yeah.
And your Spire's later. And you have less gas.
Right.
And you have worse drone count. So like the only way he can win is by busting you. And because I had an Overlord, like the scouting event, like I scouted exactly how many lings were coming out. So I basically made this number maybe -2.
So I mean, like, I guess like let's shake things out for like the other side. Let's pretend we're white. Like, what do you do? I mean, like, maybe, I don't know. I feel like he should have known what was coming. I feel like he also kind of made too many lings. What's the tactic for the 9 full speed guy? I mean, you're obviously behind, but there's got to be some outs. No?
Yeah, like the only ways so when I lose against 9 full speed, the main way is if I don't get the wall up in time.
Yeah.
Or if he somehow like did a very good optimization and he got like lings a few seconds earlier than I expected, and then like he actually broke my wall, and then you know, on ramp walls where it's hard to make, that's more common. And then once he gets into your base, it could be bad. Like he'll just streaming lings, he'll pick off drones, and you'll kind of suffer, and you won't get a spire on time and stuff. Yeah. If you make a wall like this, it's really tough. Like if he makes the right number of lings, and then for one, I would say stop making lings. One thing you could try to do is save up some money and then build a nat hatch, and then hope that he doesn't attack super soon, and then get a gas, like a second gas. And you can have a gas advantage eventually. Right. If he doesn't actually know how to press his advantage.
Yeah, I'd say that. It's just tough. I mean, he's making mutas, but you have more mutas and more gas and everything. I mean, sometimes, like, I think in this game it was kind of funny because he made a lot of lings, so it kind of prompted you to make more lings. Oh, looks like he got the first attack here. Did you lose this?
So I was a little greedy here because the first set of mutas, he's actually going to be, like, on par with you because, like, he's going to get 3, and you're also going to get, like, what, 3 or 4 because you know, I made a lot of lings too, so I'm a little delayed on my follow-up mutas. So I was a little greedy here. Like, I will eventually, you know, my larva production advantage is just really big. So
So even after like him getting first blood, you're still way ahead, and he's killing an Overlord. So the fact of the matter is that like you have more mutas than he does. Yeah, you're making Scourge, and you probably should just go right now, right? Because it's like you don't want him to bank up his mutas, right?
I think the ideal time to attack with Overgas is when you fill up to 34. So you build two Overlords at 18, and then you get up to 34, and then you make all mutas and maybe a pair of Scourge or 2. And then you just go. That's like, I think that's the best timing to go.
Okay, so you don't go like right away.
Yeah, I don't think you should go right away because like he'll have a defender's advantage initially. But you wanna get your other larva to get the other advantage.
And so you're just going straight at him. You got the mutas connecting. I think you win this. Do you?
Yeah, you'll notice that it's like not as, you know, a major advantage as you might think. And that's because I got first hit. But yeah, I mean the margins are razor thin, right?
Yeah, that's if you don't know Korean, that's not a very nice thing. But okay.
Margins are small, but like in this matchup, like if you're ahead 2 mutas, that's game over, right? So.
Yeah. So you know, I think that's kind of like maybe we can just kind of recap, just like going over like the build order counters. Like, why don't we just do that really quick? Why don't we just like go over what we think like the win rates are before anything happens, you know, like just purely based on the build. So it's like, let's say I open 9 full speed, right? So if I fight 9 full speed, theoretically that's 50-50, okay? If I'm 9 full speed against 9 full layer, what are my odds? Ish.
I think 9 full layers ahead like 70-30, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if the 9 full speed gets a first scout, but the 9 full layer doesn't, then I would say it might be favored towards 9 full speed, especially if you can do a run by where you catch him like trying to be aggressive.
Yeah.
But if the 9 full layer gets a scout, that's probably even higher, like 80-20 or something like that.
Okay, all right. So 9-pole speed likely is pretty behind against 9-pole layer. It's we just saw that we just saw that replay like against Overgas. It's really behind, right?
Overgas is really that's probably at least 70-30.
Okay.
Like 80-20 maybe. Yeah.
80-20. Okay. How about 12-pole?
Versus 9-pole.
Yeah. So I'm the 9-pole speed guy. So what's my odds against a 12-pole?
12-pole is probably like 60-40.
Like in my favor or
In that 12-pole favor.
okay. Okay.
Probably.
Yeah, it's like it's actually kind of, and that one's kind of like I feel like it's kind of arguable. I feel like some people think 12-pole is like way ahead against 9-pole. I don't really agree with that. I've heard it's kind of like 50-50, but I feel like it's pretty close. I feel like the 9-pole speed versus the 12-pole speed is kind of like the classic. I don't know. I don't know if matchup is like the right word to use here, but like I feel like it's so dependent on like that first battle, right?
Yeah, it's like everything on that matchup depends on 330 to 340, that window of time. So it's essentially who has the advantage 330 to 340. Well, if you're a perfect machine, 12-pole wins that 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So like, do I answer, okay, like it's 100%. I mean, minus, scouting, randomness, like, do I say 70-30? Well, it's tough because like that's actually not an easy micro to do.
Yeah.
12-pole definitely has an advantage. I guess if you're a pro, then it's maybe 70-30.
Yeah. Okay.
5-25.
Yeah. Okay. And then obviously 9-pole speed against 12 hatch. It's like really hard for 12 hatch.
Yeah. Like
90-10.
If it's diagonal, and you go the wrong way.
Sure.
And then like you have to like go back diagonal, then you can defend.
It's
close positions. You have pretty much no chance.
Okay.
I mean, I've won games against 9-pole speed as 12 hat.
Right.
But it's very rare. Like less than 10%.
Yeah, it's really hard because it's like, and you watch sometimes the pros, they do like the whole drone drill thing to like, and that's so hard to pull off. And like even watching them, like they'll fumble on it a lot. So it's like, it really just depends on how the cards fall. Like if they get a good drill off or if they bide enough time. Sometimes it's kind of random because it's like the 9-pole player, like, sometimes you try to pick off a drone and like it, maybe you spread your damage instead of actually targeting one. You don't actually get the kill. I don't know. It's hard to like kind of, be very like decisive on that. But most of the time, 9-pole's gonna win. Okay.
Yeah, 9-pole layer versus 12-pole. I think that's actually fairly even.
9-pole layer against, I actually think so too. 9-pole layer, because then you get like your economy's not as bad. You have faster tech. Especially if your 12-pole players like pulling the drones, right?
I would say 9-pole layer has an advantage, but usually they'll go 9-pole speed unless they somehow like know that you're doing 9-pole layer. In which case, like 12-pole layer has an advantage because they have pretty good tech. I think they still need to build spores, but like maybe one on each base just to wait for it to come out. So.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Albert asks, should you go for hatch 9-pole? Okay. 9-pole speed or go straight for the drones? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a question. Maybe we should. Well, maybe I'll find a replay. I do have a few prepared where that comes into play.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I think one kind of like throwing something in there too, as like a little tip. If you're playing 12 hatch, but it's like the 12 hatch in base, what I found against that going 9-pole is like if their spawning pool is like on your side, like as you're entering into their base, you can just attack their spawning pool, and then they just lose their spawn. Like assuming it's not in like a drill path, you could just snipe their spawning pool against 12 hatch in base, and then they just lose. Because they don't have a spawn. You can just come build Sunkens in their base and they can't do anything about it. But this is 9-pole speed against 12 hatch, just proper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll explain what you need to do because it is an advantage if you know what to do. Like you can definitely misuse the advantage. I've seen players, try to chase drones but do no damage.
Yeah. That's actually really important. Yeah.
And I will say that 9-pole speed, more than any other build, you need to get the mining correct. You need to really get those extra seconds out because they make the difference, and I'll show you why later.
Yeah. So you got the boosted mineral like on the bottom there, right? Is there another one on Eclipse?
There's one at the top, but you gotta like manually press C every time it comes back. So
Okay.
I don't like doing it, and it's actually not easy to get every time anyway.
Yeah, and sometimes it kind of like jerks and like slows you down. Okay, so now
I think it should have gone to like 105, but it went down to like 107. So yeah, that's not good.
Probably sometimes like as you're like going over to the back gear base too, maybe that impacts like the timing and stuff.
Yeah.
Is there a boostable one on the bottom left?
Left doesn't have one, fortunately.
Except,
so the right is favored versus the left. Typically.
Except when you put the pool like right there, and then like the top one gets boosted, but that's after the pool.
But usually you don't put the pool there in ZvZ because then you can't build a sunk anywhere. That's kind of tough.
Yeah. You can build it right under. I mean, it'll block you, but I think people like to do that.
That's true. Actually, this spot you can build it like a little bit below and to the left.
Yeah.
But... Okay, so here I actually try to like run around as Overlord. I think it actually made a big difference because I'll just show it again.
Yeah, because this is actually, I feel like this is actually worse off for you against a 12, because this is more of a counter against non-12 hatch, right?
Yeah, so like this, you know, if he was 12 pool, then he might not pull drones, he might make extra drones, stuff like that. But he's 12 hatch, so it doesn't do anything. It's actually slows down my attack.
Yeah, so it actually like increases his win rate here because, you know, you're giving him extra time. So I feel like your micro is going to be extra important, right?
So you get to his base. I know it's Overlord first because I saw his Overlord come out at this timing. I see the hatchery. All right, it's hatch first. Hatchery, like, the timings you have to know. The hatchery finishes at around 3 if it's 12 hatch.
Yeah.
It's finished around like 3:30-ish if it's 12 full. So
yeah. Sometimes they go like 11 hatch or 10 hatch or 9 hatch or something.
Like 5 seconds earlier and stuff like that.
Right. Okay, so here you're just it seems like you're not going inside the base, right? Well, clearly you're not because you're too late because you went around, right? Okay.
For one, I was a little bit late, and number two, even if I was early, I wouldn't go in.
Okay.
And the reason is that like he might already be coming, like setting drones down. You might get stuck. Like you want to just. There's many win conditions. One is to take out all those drones. Like sure, you could go into space, do that. It's much higher risk. Another condition is take out his nat hatch. I think that's a lot lower risk.
Yeah.
He can't move, so he has to come and save it. And one thing to keep in mind is you need to like beeline for it immediately. Like there's no dallying, there's no like, you know, checking up the ramp or anything. Just go straight to it. And make sure you're like not in the way of the drone drill. So like don't stand to the left of the hatchery.
Yeah.
And because every second counts here.
Yeah.
Every second, like you can see the hatchery is like going down to 0. Like you can see that every second counts, right? So I like to do this. Once he sends his drones, engage with the closer ones and A move, like the close ones, and then just keep the rest attacking. You can also move them around like to the right so that they aren't affected by the drones as well.
Yeah.
But as long as they're not being like bunched, like drone drilled by the drones, you're fine.
Yeah, I like that. So it seems like you're just kind of, okay, you got 2 and I maybe just pause here, I guess. His drones were actually really late too. So I mean, but I like what you did because it's like, I think what the drone driller, it's kind of like a mini game, right? What the drone driller wants you to do is for you to A move all their drones, and then the drone player pulls back their drones, right? And then you like chase the drones, right? What they don't want you to do is to do exactly what you did because you're kind of hedging, right? You're like, okay, I'm still gonna attack you, and if you don't run back, I'm gonna kill drones, but you better come back soon because you have 5 lings still attacking the hatchery. So it's kind of like the win condition here is like if you kill the hatchery, you basically win. If you force a cancel, I think you still basically win. If you kill enough drones, you basically win, right? So there's so many different win conditions, and I really like that micro thing there where you just kind of only attack with like 3 lings on the corner, force them to run back home, pick off a drone, and you can still get the hatchery.
Yeah, so like if he drilled a little better, maybe if he was a little bit earlier, what he could do is like try to block the path. You have speed, so you're going to be able to go around him. Like if he actually like tried to surround my lings and he was closer to my lings, I would sort of move around and go to the bottom right, you know.
Right.
And he will drill again maybe, but always try to have some lings attacking. Like if you have to engage because he's drilling, then like you should. but always have speed attack because like the hatchery has to go down. And
Yeah, because they almost always try to do that, right? Like you see how he tried to like drill back, but then he came back because he's like, oh shoot, this guy's not chasing me, right? Because if you chase and then they go back, like every millisecond matters, right? So if you're not hitting the hatchery, then their hatchery might live. So the only time you like move all their drones is if they start reaching too much. Like if they start going straight for your lings, they don't pull back, then yeah, if you kill 8 drones, then you win, you know? So that's like the other win condition. You just, you know, they're kind of contingent on you, you know, making that mistake of over chasing or not chasing at all, or, you know, so it's kind of like a very delicate minigame.
Yeah, one thing to note is that most 12 hatchers will have enough time to get speed upgrade and then pull all the drones off of gas. So
Yeah.
You should expect speed. If you don't do enough damage, you should expect a counter, and you just died with that counter if you didn't do enough damage. So that's what we would lose.
Yeah. Well, what about? And I kind of talked about this earlier, but like, what about when they cancel the hatchery, and then they just like come back in? What do you do then?
I have off the top of my head a replay, but yeah, if they cancel, then yeah, you would run in and try to force a sunk and make the drones bunch up. Try to pick off drones and stuff. There, you don't have a straight up win condition, like but there's also no reason for you to like escape because you have the speed.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to dance around, make them pull drones, like pick off the ones that are getting gas, like pick off the larvae that are hatching. They usually make a sunk because of this. So then you do this, and then you make a lair, you like make mutas, and then just go on from there basically.
Right. Okay.
And as AY said, like if he has like the usually the pool is sort of like in between the mineral and the gas, and it's like a ling type thing. Then you just like hit the pool and you can kill it.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, if the pool is right there, then you can just literally kill it. Just walk up there, don't stutter, just go straight for it. As long as you're not in the pathway of like a drill, like the drone drill, then if you kill the pool, then you just win. So that's also another way.
It doesn't have a second hatch, so most lings that can pop is 6, but you already have 6, and you have more coming. So you'll always have a ling advantage. Like he can't really attack you, like and usually players will build a sunk, and then if the finishes in time, you have to run away. But sometimes take out the pool. Yeah,
the pool. Yeah, I think going for the pool if it's on your side is like even if they make sunk, it's not going to finish in time. But another way is like you can also camp their eggs if they don't have a sunk. You know what I mean? Like you could just surround their lings, and as long as you're not in a drill path too, then you probably just camp it and win. So a lot of things you can do, but I think I've made my mistakes in the past too, where I like go in and I'm like, oh shoot, I messed this up. I gave him too much time. I was too indecisive or something. So you just gotta like learn what to do and just go do it. Just be decisive, and it's better to be like decisive. Like you don't want to be indecisive because that's gonna like lead to trouble. So be decisive. If it's wrong, then just scratch it off in your head as something you'd never do in the future.
Yeah, I would say a caveat though is that if they do 11 hatch on a diagonally different map, like distant map, like benzene or like
big maps,
it's possible that your 9 pool will just fail. Like it'll maybe sometimes like with better, if you're like, especially if the 12 or 11 hatcher is on the right side of the map, like get like that hatchery a few seconds earlier, the lings a few seconds earlier, like that could make the difference between you taking out the hatch, and you might actually be behind after failing to take out the gnat. So on bigger maps, it's not a guaranteed win. Yeah. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Okay. Got a couple questions here. Let's see. Let's go up to the one Cyrax asked, and maybe we'll just kind of transition to questions. So if you guys have questions, feel free to ask now. I'll also pull up the question block for pre-submitted questions, but we'll just answer the ones in the chat here. Is there a viable Hydra build? Oh, were you gonna say something?
We want to focus on the Zerg versus Zerg stuff for this cast.
Yeah. Let's focus on the ZvZ stuff. All right, viable Hydra build. What is the most viable Hydra build?
I honestly never go Hydras, so I wouldn't be the right person to ask.
Yeah. Let's think here. I feel like in general, so I don't know about like builds per se, because it's always Hazel. Thank you so much for the raid. It's always like contingent on what your opponent's doing, because even if you're like doing like 12, I don't know, like it depends on if you're just like a ling rush coming, but generally for Hydras you want to time your attacks to be like with an upgrade. I don't know, like in the Hydra builds that I've done in the past, I actually go Carapace. I mean, I know a lot of people like to go ranged weapons. Like there's builds where I just like sit and bank Hydras and I get wait till like +2 Carapace, and then if you're fighting mutas, like their mutas do like no damage to you. But I don't know, I'm not really an expert either. I think you just make your hatchery, assume you don't die to lings, you just make some Sunkens, defend, mass spores, and like get 3 hatches, and then just, I think as long as you have like enough drones, maybe like 1 drone per patch, you just start pumping Hydras. So I think two base, you can probably mass Hydras on like 15 drones, you know.
Yeah, I think the timing does matter. You might think
Yeah.
you'll just sit back and like mass Hydras and go, but having played the other side of that and
Yeah.
won a lot of games, like if you give me enough time, I'll take
Yeah.
a 3rd base, I'll go to Hive and
Sure.
do
Yeah,
all
yeah.
this other- So you do want to move out before, I think, maybe like 9th minute, 10th, like 10 would be too late.
Yeah. Oh, you for sure can't wait too long, because you know the other, and I guess we're kind of going into like clown territory, but it's good to know, like if you're playing against a clown that's going Hydras and they're sitting there, you know, if you just make 1 lurker, it's over, because they usually don't make like you know, overlord speed unless like it's way later. So it's like you don't want to give them too much time. They could also go mass sunks and then tech to Hive and have guardians at your natural, you know what I mean? So it's like the muta player has so many different options. They could just literally tech and counter your Hydras very easily. So like you really want to hit, I don't know what the exact timing is. It's something like 7, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, I don't know, something like that, where like you don't give them enough time to tech, but they're like making a decision as to whether they should mass mutas or just make drones and stuff. And sometimes you want to catch them while they're trying to like drone or expand. So I don't know. It's not a whole lot of science there from our perspective, because
optimal Hydra build somewhere.
yeah, I think maybe Gorinich, I know he's got some Hydra openings, so maybe he's a better person to ask. All right, can you touch on Protoss players starting to ball? It's okay. Zerg players make a Hydra den and don't usually. We'll stick to ZvZ for now. I think Protoss players, Zerg players start to bald because of Protoss players, man. Just kidding. We talked about the boostable bottom left ones. Okay, DB asks, if you see a 9-pull coming when you 12 hatch, should you cancel? Oh, I think we kind of went over that, but your answer is?
Coming when you're 12 hatch, you should kind of it is a way to do it. I try to actually win the micro battle. It happens from time to time, so I'll keep the hatchery alive and then I'll like try to micro with my drones.
Yeah, I'd say that if you're playing against anybody competent, you shouldn't do that. And if you're trying to become competent yourself, you shouldn't do that, because you should learn how to micro that. You know what I mean? Like, even if you're gonna lose 99% of the time, you should at least like face your fears and say, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do the drone drill that all the pros do, and I'm gonna lose. But like, you should still practice it, because it's still practice. If you're playing against like a 1500 player in, you know, like Rookie Star League or something, like you could probably get away with canceling the hatchery, make the sunken in the base, and just like, I don't know, playing off that. I wouldn't recommend it though. Okay, so Oblivion asks, is there any secret to getting up a ramp when my lings are wigging out? Is that?
Yeah, like the pathing bugs out and they like start running everywhere. You can't A-move everything, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What I've seen people try to do is like they'll take 2 or 3 lings and try to poke which ones are like solo. Because like sometimes in a line, like some of them, if you hit them, like 3 hit you back. But then there's like some spots where if you hit them, only 1 hit you back.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can just try to take 2 or 3 lings and try to take that one out and then like run through afterwards. But
yeah, because it's actually kind of hectic. Yeah, because it's like you're trying to like bust down, I don't know, it's like, it's a micro battle, right? So it's like, and it's hard because it's like there's so many different iterations, there's like an infinite number of possibilities for like different ramp, you know, however many ramps they have in the arcs and stuff. So like, if you're trying to bust up a ramp, sometimes I like to just practice just like taking 1 ling and like finding one, and then like right before it dies I run it away, and then I get a new ling and I just like bust it. And you know, sometimes you can poke open a wall, they're not watching, and you know, yeah, you can win like that. So
if they have a perfect wall, I would say you can't, but often they're human usually, so they'll have like 1 ling that's like too far forward or something like that.
Yeah, like the perfect walls always have like at least 2 lings are attacking you, so you can't really do that. I mean, I guess you Yeah, I wouldn't do that. If two lings are attacking you, you should never do that. Like, I think I was playing you yesterday, StRyKeR, where I tried to do that, and then four of your lings like were attacking mine, and like I couldn't even run it back. I just lost it. I'm like, oh. I think it happened twice. I think I lost two lings. So I was like trying to be like Jaeyun, and then one ling was getting hit by 4 simultaneously. But okay. Let's see. How many drones should you use in your drone drill against 9-pool?
Oh, I would bring everything but maybe 3 or 4.
So how many is that? It's that you have 11 drones?
9 or 8.
Oh yeah,
because
okay. 12 minus 3, 9. Okay, yeah, 9. You have 9, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, if you somehow save your hatch, you have to keep your drones there for a while until your speed kicks in.
Right. Yeah, so you probably just bring everything except for like 2 or 3. I mean, similar to like fighting 8 racks. I think you pull like around 8 drones, right? 7 or 8 drones. It's a single 8 racks. So it's probably good. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you're not trying to optimize for, you know, like economy per se. Like, I guess you sort of want economy because you want to make sure you have enough to make lings, right? So that's why you kind of bring like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I think that's all the questions in the chat, but if you guys have more, feel free to ask. I wonder if my Twitch thing, hold on. My Twitch channel like glitching. Do you see that too?
No, I don't see any more questions, but...
Hold on, no, I think my, yeah, oh, never mind. I thought my stream was actually going down or something. Okay. Let's go to...
Actually, no, I do see one. It says it's losing to all Hydra builds, not just a scouting problem. Yeah, I would say it's mostly a scouting problem. If you don't scout it, then yeah, you could be caught by surprise. You're making mass Hydra, or you may have like mass mutas, and he comes in with like 2 upgraded Hydras. Like, then yeah, you would.
Yeah, it's a scouting problem, or it's a knowledge problem. Like if you don't know, then yeah, you could lose to it. So don't feel bad, but just go learn how to go count it. So okay.
Okay. So another one. Oblivion asks, if you're planning 9-pool speed, but Overlord sees no hatchery, vertical scout circuit breakers, but you know he's there, do you recommend making 3 drones instead of practice sunken? So you're the 9-pool player, and you scout vertically, and is he there? Or is he not there and there's no hatchery? He is there and there isn't a hatchery?
Wait, sorry, let me read that. You're planning... Okay, I assume you're the 9-pool speed player. Overlord sees no hatchery, vertical scouts on circuit. Okay.
Is he actually there? Or are you saying that... Okay.
Oh,
so
I think... Yeah. Oh, yeah. He is there. So okay. So I see what you're saying. So I think what I would do there is that I would still. I mean, you still make the lings, right? Because it's like I think you make it before then.
Yeah. You would definitely make it before you see. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. You definitely make it before then. I'm pretty sure.
A lot of times, I actually like to go 9-pool lair in that situation. What's your opinion on that?
One sec. The lings will be at the ramp at 225, which means that they pop at around 220, which means you click that at around 2. Overlords pass by on circuit breaker at around 117. So yeah, you actually do pass the Overlords. I mean, you have to make lings. Why would you not make lings there? If you oh, but you don't get to the nat until maybe like 130 to 2. Yeah, you get to the nat at around 2 something. So no, never mind. You do have to pump lings before you see the nat. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I wouldn't make you shouldn't make 3 drones. Okay, and here's why. Because it's like you don't want your opponent, because like you're still going to be fighting against like, you know, you could be fighting against like 9-pool and they can make lings, right? I guess you could make the sunken, but the sunken is also expensive, right? You're losing a drone and you're losing 125 minerals, so it's like, why not just make the lings, right? Because it's like you could like it's going to cost you almost just as much to make the sunken than 6 lings, and you just lose like map control. You kind of lose so much, so you shouldn't do that. I mean, I guess you can try to mind game, but I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Okay. So the question is, do I choose to make layer instead of speed?
Yeah, I personally would do that because I like going 9-pool speed. Obviously, if they go 12 hatch, right? So you want your speed. If you're against 12 pool, you should see their drone coming out, right, to make the hatchery. So then I would want a 12 pool. I mean, I would want my speed. But if I don't see a 12 hatch and I don't see them making a hatch, then it must be a 1 base build.
Right.
So like I like switching into 9 pool layer to get the faster layer. Because you might be fighting against another 9 pooler, or they might be like over gas, and you don't want to be 9 pool speed against over gas, right? Now you could also be fighting in base 12 hatch or something weird. But even still, in that case, you're still good, right? You still have your 6 lings on their en route to their base, and you have a faster tech. So, is that right? I think that's correct, but I never verified.
Yeah, that sounds right. It happens surprisingly rarely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's right. I think 9 pool layer is better against 1 base builds than 9 pool speed.
Right. Yeah. Because like you're no longer against any expansion, and you can't micro against 12 pool speed, so you're probably good going 9 pool layer.
I mean, you might play a mind game where you think they're 9 pool layer, and then they you see the lings come out, right? But then they come aggressively out, but you can run around and then counter them with speed.
Right.
Like that. But that would be like a mind game situation.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right, so let's go to some of the pre-asked questions. And also, Camo donated $20. I don't think the notification showed up, but thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's go to the questions. I pulled up the question block here. Hatchcake asks, how do I micro lings? Okay, when I used to do 12 pool builds, sometimes I would take a bad fight with my first 2 lings, then just die because they had more lings than me and killed my hatch. I can't seem to dominate. Okay, so this seems like the classic 12 pool speed against 9 pool speed situation, right? So we kind of went over this, but what's kind of like your general strategy defending against 9 pool speed?
Yeah, it's tough.
I mean, well, number one, you have to pull drones, right? So if he's not pulling drones, then you're gonna die.
Yeah, against 9 pool speed, if you're 12 pool, you do need to pull drones at least 2, because he's gonna have 2 more lings than you when he has speed.
Right.
Follow up will arrive first.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I personally like keeping everything in one control key. Like drones and lings, so they move together. And then when the drone gets hit, I click on the drone and then put him back on minerals in the main.
Right.
And yeah, if it's a ling versus ling, you want as much of a concave as possible, where it's wider on your side than his. So hitting him at the same time. And if you have a ling, then try to run him back so that the others try to chase it and get hit trying to chase it.
Yeah. It's tough. It's really tough. Yeah, it's really tough because it's when you're trying to do the pullback, you only have a few seconds, or not even a few seconds. It's a millisecond before they just die. In general, you just want to play very defensive. You don't want to chase them unless you're you have position. You always want to create a concave. Some other tips is kind of make sure, I like to put my drones kind of in front. Sometimes you don't want to be too in front so that they can snipe the drone, but sometimes they might come to your drone and then you can pull back your drones and attack into them. So you kind of engulf them. So it's always about concaves. If it's melee units, you always want the wider angle that's surrounding them versus being clumped up. So that's as much as we could say. I mean, at the end of the day, it just comes down to practice. You just have to go and practice
So if you bring drones, it's more of an even fight. If you somehow lose your drones and you again lost the link fight or something and you're outnumbered, you want to delay the fight as much as possible. So try to run up your ramp. They might try to hold your ramp.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to make a wall in 2 seconds. So it's not as bad as you might think if you run up the ramp and you're worried about them holding your ramp. They're not zealots, but they can block it with two zealots.
Right.
So
right.
I think you should run up the ramp if you have fewer lings and just wait for your second set of second hatchery to produce more larvae and then try to go from there. But it's tough if you lose that first fight. That snowballs really fast.
Right. Yeah. Okay. StRyKeR asks. I'm sorry.
Important.
Yeah.
Yeah. First fight is the most important, and then that pretty much decides the rest of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. StRyKeR asks, how do you hotkey mutas and skirt in ZvZ? Ooh, that's a very good question. I try to do the cloning thing with both in one, then same group, just one scourge in group 2. Oh, the cloning. Okay. There's a lot of leftover scourge. Is it just a case of sending a flock of scourge in and pressing hold position in patrol? Could be a good pointer. Yeah. And what's your answer to this?
So I have like 3 situations. So number 1 is I have like 2 mutas and like Scourge or something, like very few, where everything fits in a control group. Then I will put everything in one control group, because then like you can hide your Scourge underneath your mutas. So that's pretty useful.
Yep.
You could also clone that pretty easily, because you only have like one group. You can like do what you just did.
Yeah.
Put in one group, take one Scourge out, that's number 2. Take one Scourge out, that's number 3, whatever.
Right.
If you have enough mutas to fill a group, I will put all the Scourge in 2, and then clone, like subtract 2 and then put it on 3, subtract 2, put it on 4. Now if there's more, like I have 2 control groups of mutas, I'll just put all the Scourge on 3 and don't worry about cloning, and just like move them to the group.
Yeah, and then in general, like, yeah, I think it really depends, because it's like, it depends on how many Scourge you have. You don't want to do this whole cloning thing if you have like 11 mutas and like 10 Scourge, right? Like, if you have small number of Scourge and you're like, it's like 1 base versus 1 base battle, like, you know, 4 muta, 2 Scourge or something like that, then you can do the cloning thing. Yeah, I think that's a very good idea, especially with like 4 Scourge. But I think in bigger battles, like you'll see a lot of pros, they'll control like 2 groups of mutas on like 1 and 2, and then they have like their Scourges like all in one control group, or 2, whatever. And then they're on move commands, following and trailing the mutas. So this is kind of like how we said before, where it becomes this funny battle where it's like your Scourges are not on a click so that they just pop with the first thing that they see. You only detonate the Scourges with like the A click if they're on top of their mutas. So it's kind of like this intricate dance where you have to use the Scourges as your shield, and you don't pop them until they're on top of the mutas. So that's one adjustment you probably have to make.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to like hold position them. I would say you just want to kind of move them in and out, and yeah, as Jaeyun said, you want to only attack when you can get a hit, so to speak, and never alone without mutas to protect them. So it's like you protect the Scourge with the mutas and vice versa. They sort of have to always be together, and yeah, that's why it's hard to do. But when I'm going towards the other guy's base, well, I often like to do just take my Scourge and right-click my muta. Yeah. So then they sort of like tag along to my muta. And the nice thing about this is that they don't automatically engage like overlords that are in the way. Like if you attack move your mutas and you attack move your Scourge as well, they're just gonna like, they might just run into like a single overlord. But if you like right on your muta, they follow your muta and they don't actually engage anywhere else. So that's like a nice way to make them tag along without actually engage like things you don't want to engage.
Yeah, I've lost games like that because I had more Scourge in same muta count, and then all my Scourge popped into like 1 or 2 other Scourges and I lost. You know what I mean? Like, so you don't want that to happen, and you don't want it to. In general, you don't want to leave it up to chance. Like, even if you're not good at it, I just practice it. Just try to get better at it. Don't pop your Scourges until they're like actually, you know, there. And then I think what pros do is like once they see the mutas in sight, they just like take all their Scourge and then like right click a muta, and then they try to like clone it while they're en route. And that's really hard. Don't get me wrong, it's really hard. You know, while they're like fighting against their opponent's Scourges, so it's super hard, but it's something that's worth practicing. And there's micro maps. StRyKeR actually made one, so if you want to download it, there's one in my Discord, or you can just go message him directly. He could probably give you the map. You can practice that with your friends, so it's definitely worth doing.
Right.
Okay. The pen friends and king question. We'll save that at the end. IRK Cause asks, do you have any tips and pointers for breaking high ground ling circle from the bottom? Are there any techniques to more efficiently break ling lines? Is there a general ratio of lings you should have before attempting it, or is it a field experience thing? Okay, so I think we went over this, but...
Yeah, we went over this to some extent. Yeah. You want to look for, like, sometimes it's a perfect wall, then you probably shouldn't do it, but most of the times there's some leak. You can see, like, one link that's too forward or something like that, then you just got to pick that one off and, like, you know, make them pull it back, and sometimes they can't because they're like managing their own base, like making mutas or whatever. So like you want to like tax that, and if you can take it out, just run in and, you know, try to hope for the best. I would say that
go ahead.
Sometimes you want to break it because it's like you went all in lings and he's like being greedy, and the ratio is hard to do, but like I would say like if it's a really perfect wall, you might need more than like 50% more lings or something like that, like crazy amount.
Yeah, the wall is really strong. I would say in general, if you're going to attempt this, make sure you yourself don't get counter like block. You know what I mean? Like if you're wasting links trying to like bust the wall, and then you have less links because you're taking worse trades, and then now they just come down and kill you. So always make sure you could hold your side of the ramp without you getting busted. And then sometimes it's also just about like an APM battle. Like, and that's kind of the area that you have to think about, where it's like, sometimes you do that to like make your opponent nervous and stuff, especially if they're like lower level players. Like, you know, sometimes we pride ourselves on making a very nice, you know, Zergling wall, and then like once you break it, they like mentally just break down, and then they just like, you know, they just like A-move their wall and they lose their wall, right? So it's like, sometimes you can kind of do that. You kind of force it, just kind of get them to like think about it and stuff. So no, Keen, you didn't. We'll get to it at the end. Okay.
Yeah, I would say that like another thing is like I've done some experiments. Like yeah, like 6 can definitely hold 8 with a good wall, and like I've seen situations where like 12 holds like against like 16,
Yeah.
18.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's the efficiency is crazy.
Okay. What are some noob-friendly builds for ZvZ that doesn't rely on Ling All-In?
Well, I mean, 9-pull speed is not a Ling All-In.
So hard. It's so hard to say, because it's like, what the heck does all-in mean in ZvZ anymore? You know what I mean? Like, there's like this super funny like video between like Gypsy and models casting in BSL. Like they're just like sarcastically talking about like Ling all-in ZvZs, because it's like, you know, it's hard because it's like, I guess you could go like 12 hatch or 12 pull expand and then like go
I mean, all of
Hydras.
those have a Ling All-In branch is the thing. The thing is like Ling All-In is like a thing that you can do in any build if the situation calls for it.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of like
more than others, but yeah. It's less a build. It's more of like a technique with any given build.
Right.
You win plenty of games without Ling All-Ins. I would say 9-pull speed is actually a pretty good example of that. Like you don't have to end the game early.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Often, like it goes to a later game, but if you do enough damage early on, then you have a muta advantage later, attack advantage, etc., etc. So, 9-pull speed is, you know, my answer to that question. I would say.
Oh, actually, you know what? I think like overgas to 2 hatcheries, and then you get 600 mutas, and you just hold your wall with lings, and you don't even get speed. Yeah. That's probably a good noob-friendly build, right? You just
that's like That's like the opposite of a Ling All-In, where you're just trying to defend before mutas.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good answer. Just defend, hold your ramp, and then just go 6 mutas, and then pray that you win. Okay. Albert asks, are there maps that are safe to 12 hatch versus 9 pull on? Ooh, okay, maybe a broader question. What is a map more suitable for a build than another build? Okay. Any maps?
Yeah, in big maps, 4-player maps, better to 12 hatch on, because, you know, if they don't scout you, if they go the wrong way, if it's diagonal, like, you have more time to get your lings out.
Right.
Drones can mine a little longer before they have to come out, so, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, are there any other characteristics, like bases that have like an in-base nat, like a back nat?
Yeah.
Like that's really great for 12 hatch because they can't threaten you. They have to come up the ramp you and stuff like that. So
see, I think the question, the hard thing about this is like the whole game theoretical aspect of it, right? Because it's kind of like, for example, I'd say maps like Benzene and Matchpoint are long ground rush distance maps, and so they're probably good to 12 hatch, but like. At the same time, like, I also don't want to fight a 9 pull. Yeah, I still don't like fighting 9 pull because it's like you buy yourself a few, like, you know, more seconds, right? It might be like 3 to 5 more seconds at most. But it's still hard.
It's better than other maps, but I guess it's still not safe. So the strict answer to your question, are there maps that are safe to 12 hatch on? I don't think there's any.
No.
It's just that some maps you have a less of an advantage, less of a build order disadvantage than others.
But then like that might, you know, who knows if that might even prompt your opponent to go 9 pull more, because it's kind of like, you know, it's like the game theory, right? It's like, oh, it's a big map, my opponent's more likely to 12 hatch, so I'm gonna go 9 pull. So it's like
no, I mean, island maps obviously you would 12 hatch.
Yeah.
Sparkle. That's probably
right. Okay. I guess like how about the broader question part? Is there, aside from the 12 hatch thing, is there any other like, how does map play a role in your build?
We just discussed one aspect, which is like distance. Another aspect is like the wall ability. Still is a great example. You can like wall with maybe 4 lings. It's really easy because it's either horizontal or vertical.
Yep.
That makes 1 base builds a lot stronger against 2 base builds because you don't have to worry about a threat of an all-in, which also means that Overgas, which is one of the best 1 base builds, is very strong on Sylphid. This also holds true on Heartbreak Ridge. Not only is it far, it's also, you know, horizontal walls, pretty easy to wall. Yeah.
Okay. I think one other aspect to consider is if you're playing on a one-on-one map, because like the path is always like, you know, assuming that the Overlord path is always in the Ling path, you're always going to scout like, you know, something. And so that might lend itself to builds like 9-Pool where the Lings go around in a different path, so you kind of hide it. Things like that. So, you know, that's also a thing, and you can also hide your second Overlord if you go Overlord first on 2-player maps. So I'd say the number, if it's like a one-on-one map, that kind of changes certain things, and it might lend itself to like, you know, different tactics, I guess, because you can hide stuff.
Right. Yeah, I'm assuming that there's no scouting, because like if you're on Python air distances, then like you're gonna see what they're doing. You should probably not open 9-Pool because they're gonna see you through 9-Pool and do overpool or something.
Right. Yeah. Okay. How many drones is it okay to lose if you're going 12 hatch and need to duke it out? Waiting for. Okay, that's a good question actually. So
I'm thinking this is like 9-Pool.
Yeah, against 9-Pool. Yeah.
It's tough to say because it also depends on like whether he committed harder to lings, how many lings he lost, how many did he make follow-up drones or whatnot. But I will say like you first need to save your hatch.
Yeah.
And I would say if you have less than like 7 or 8, then you're definitely behind, I would say. So
I mean, I guess let's just do the math here, right? So it's kind of like, let's say 9-Pool speed, just going all lings, right? They have, how many drones do they have? 8? Until they make more, right? 9, 8, 9. Or maybe they have 9? No, I think they have 8. I don't know, I should know this.
Well, because you pop Overlord and it's 9/9, and then you make lings from there. So I'm guessing, yeah, you would have 9 drones.
Okay, 9 drones. Yeah, 9 drones. So and then let's say you as a 12 hatcher, you have 12 drones, right?
Yep.
12 drones, okay, and then... Yeah, so I mean, if you lose, let's say, I don't know, let's say you lose 5, right? So then you're on 7 against 9, right? But you have 2 hatches, and you have speed on the way. So maybe losing... I think you're still ahead if you lose 5, right? And your hatch lives?
It's hard to say. I mean...
I think I like that position.
And money, you need to like destroy 5 drones, making 4 sunks in an Evo chamber. So...
True. But you're also probably forcing your opponent to make a sunk too, because like presumably you can like mass link there. Or you're likely...
Yeah, it depends on how much the fight goes in your favor. If you lose like if you lose no lings somehow, then like the counter would be really strong, and he would have to be making the sunk. But if it's sort of even and you can't actually, because if you go all lings then and like he actually defends, then you have no money at all to make spores and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know the exact number, but I want to say if you lose 4 at least, then you're definitely behind. I want to say 4 to 5. Maybe.
Wait, 4 drones, but you save your hatcher. The 12 hatchers behind. You think?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think it might be 5. Maybe that's like the break point.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I just haven't experienced it too often.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I lose 4 to 5, it's like bad.
Yeah. I mean, usually you don't have a choice. You're just like you just left with what you got, and then you just hope for the best, right? So it's like. I guess in general, like it doesn't really change the situation much, but I don't know. We don't know the answer. We're not pros. It's like probably somewhere around 4 or 5 or something like that. So
yeah, I guess it's not like ARAX where it's a lot more studied and common. There, it's like I think pros are like if you lose 3 drones, you're behind or something. So.
Really, they said 3 against 9-Pool?
It's like somewhat negative for Zerg.
Wow. Jeez. Okay. Oh, you mean 3 in ZvT, not...
ZvT. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were talking about the 12 hatch, yeah. Oh yeah, if you lose 3 drones for sure against a single 8 racks, then you're for sure behind. Yeah. Okay. In what situations is it worth to prioritize making scourges over mutas with your gas and larva? What situations is it okay to kill overlords with scourges? Ooh. Okay.
So like the second phase I talked about, where you have 11 mutas and making more might be counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I would fill up like 10 scourge and then just go for a timing attack.
Right.
If I like 12 hatch or 12 4 or something. Like
Yeah,
if I believe that I could out micro him or something like that.
Yeah, there's specific timings too, right? Where it's like sometimes when you're kind of even against an opponent, right? Like you guys both have air and you're kind of like doing this little dance. Sometimes you kind of have to guess if your opponent goes upgrade first and you didn't go upgrade. So actually a good timing for some Zergs is that you can actually hit your opponent before their upgrade finishes, because then presumably you also have 100 or 150 gas and minerals. And so when you're trying to hit a timing, I like to mass scourge once assuming I have enough mutas, like you have like, I don't know, 7 or 11 at least or something, right? I just like to mass scourge and just like rally them, because it's more important that you like attack them sooner before they mass up, and you give them an opportunity to like, I don't know, ball up and you don't get the trades you want. So I like to do that personally. Like you said, like if my upgrade's about to finish at like 80% or something, or 90%, and I'm about to attack, I just make all scourge so that I can like maximize the damage output within like that 10 or 20 second window. So that's probably a good idea.
Answer would be like before an attack.
Yeah, before an attack. Yeah.
Or right before an attack. Not too much earlier, because then like they could be mutas instead, and not too much after, because then you don't have them for the battle. Yeah. I also make them to scout once in a while. Like I'll make a pair, just throw it in the base to see if he's going 5 or something weird.
Yeah. Okay. What situations is it okay to kill Overlord with Scourges?
Very rare situations. I would almost never do it unless, like, if I went all in Lings and I know it's some economic damage and he can barely, like, produce any drones or whatever, then I might kill Overlords to delay him, because I know he's, like, starving on minerals.
Yep.
But if it's sort of an even game, I would never do that.
Yeah, I could see maybe, like, you know, let's say you're in like a cutthroat game, you have 2 bases, he has 1 base, maybe he did damage to you, but you have like 2 gases, and then you have like extra, you know, Scourge, and then they're starved for money too, so it's kind of like, sometimes you could like block them just by like popping Overlords with extra Scourge and stuff, you know what I mean? So it's like, in certain situations you can, if like you know that it's gonna block them and it's gonna cost a lot more damage for them to do it, but it's usually in like very crisis situations, and even still, if they have mutas in play, like I wouldn't do that, because like ZvZ you could lose, like like with it could be the difference of 1 muta that ends the game, and you don't want to use that on an Overlord. Or I guess you could pop it if you're going for some sick timing, where it's like you pop their Overlord and then your production cycle hatches, and then you attack like right before their like mutas pop and stuff. It's hard to plan that though, but I could see that being a possibility. I'm pretty sure that's some pros have planned that.
That's
right?
A funny comment he made in chat. Yeah, in TR8. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. If you're behind, yeah, I guess that's another thing. If you're behind and you just want to do like a Hail Mary, like, okay, cross fingers, my opponent's nervous or he can't micro, and then you just all Scourge, and then you just like mass Lings and stuff. So like that's one mechanic. Like if I'm behind and I know I can't catch him in mutas, I'll just try to like, you know, like come in from the side and just like kind of snipe you with the Scourge, and because you know if they miss micro, you can come back in the game like that.
Yeah, I would just. The only time I do it is accidentally.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, oh shoot, I like forgot to move them away, and they like got sucked into Overlords. But
right.
I personally would almost never do it intentionally.
Yeah. Usually not, unless it's like some crazy scenario. So, okay. How many mutas do you need to feel like you can safely attack a base with 1, 2, 3, 4 spores for no upgrade mutas for +1 attack? Okay, so we've got some different scenarios here, but what the most common is like 1 base versus 2 base, like 9 pull speed. If you're playing against 2 spores, I don't know what the magic number is. I think if you have 8 mutas and you're like microing against a spore, so you're not always getting hit by both, you can snipe 1 spore and then you snipe the other one, right? Yeah. And then you could win.
7 or 8 is a good number against a single spore.
Right.
You can kill a spore with less, but you just take so much damage.
Yeah.
It's probably.
Yeah, so I think if you're one base and you got 8 mutas, maybe you can be 9 to be safe. I mean, it depends on the positioning of the spores, but like assuming the spores are kind of staggered so you're not getting hit by both at all times, 9's a good number to just go all in and bust it, assuming they don't have other mutas, because then like you can just go to pick off one spore, pick off the other one, then camp them. So that's a good number. And then conversely, if you're on the defensive side, you need to make a third spore. Like if you're fighting against muta all, then you got to make a third spore, and sometimes even 4 spores if they're going like 12 mutas and stuff. So I think so 8, yeah.
I wouldn't be scared against 5 mutas or 6, but if it's more, I would definitely worry about, oh, is my spore close enough to my other spore? Because one spore will get picked off by like 8 or 9 mutas very quickly.
Yep. Yeah, so if they get 8 or 9, you definitely want to put down that third spore. And if they're still on one base and they're getting like 12 plus, you want 4 spores and stuff. So that's kind of, I think that's kind of like the general thing. +1 attack.
For no upgrade or +1, I'm not sure. Like +1 carapace, it's hard to imagine. I mean, fewer, I guess, but probably not by much. Maybe like 1 fewer muta would be sufficient if you have +1 attack.
Yeah, I actually don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that you could probably go test it, but I don't know off the top of my head. I think the most common scenario is like the 1 base versus 2 base. So, I don't know if they have 4 spores, man. Like,
yeah,
I wouldn't attack into that unless you're just like massively ahead and you're just bombing them. So,
yeah, I did some math on this. Like a spore is essentially like 3.5 mutas worth of like HP and damage.
Interesting. Okay.
But they also have longer range, so they're a little bit stronger. So you can think of it that way. If you have like, if it's mid game and they have like a group of mutas and maybe 2 spores, and you have like 2 groups of mutas, I think you should make that fight. I think you're ahead, because if you add up the spores, that's like equivalently like 7 or 8 mutas. So they have like equivalently 20, and you have like 24. You might want a few more just because you want a better efficiency in the fight, and you don't want to just like leave with like 2 mutas or something. But yeah. That's one way to think about it.
Okay. Let's see. That was good questions. Thanks, Albert. Yenta asks, what are the common Overlord scouting patterns when you execute on a certain build? When do you supplement with the drone scout? Do you ever hide your second Overlord? Good question.
Right. So yeah, we covered some of the Overlord scouting patterns on circuit breakers and the polypoid.
Yeah.
On 9-pool, if you're doing 9-pool, you just want to know where he is. You don't care about what his build is that much, so you send it like in the direction that would give you additional information, assuming that the other player normal scouts. So on CP, it's like left, right.
Right.
But polypoid doesn't really have this, so there isn't really an equivalent thing for polypoid.
Yeah, and I guess that's the only way. I mean, you always want to scout towards their natural. That's the most common. And then if you 9-pool, you can scout the other way. And I guess if you want to like mind game, I've seen some people scout diagonally and stuff, like on a 4-player map. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, I guess you could just to like confuse your opponent, just go the other way or something. But you really want to make sure it's planned with your build so that you don't just do it on the fly. You know, I wouldn't just randomly go the other way and like not have a plan for like your later scouting thing. So, do you ever drone scout?
Never. I know some players do, but I don't really see the point in it. You hurt your eco a lot by doing it, and I mean, it might prevent some situations where you get all-in, but I mean, you're essentially otherwise putting yourself at a disadvantage, like a very clear disadvantage. So, I mean, if you're going 5-pool, then you do need to drone scout. But outside of that, I don't think any build like would recommend, like I legitimately recommend the drone scout.
Okay, I have one clown build where it is beneficial to drone scout, and here's what you do. It's a very clowny build. It's not. I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're going 12 hatch, and you drone scout, and your opponent's also going 12 hatch or 12 pool, you could also get a 3rd hatch before your hatchery. I mean your pool, and still survive. And then you just like mass you on like this mass like ling spore kind of clowny thing. But if you're fighting against 9-pool or anything else, then you're gonna be really behind. So realistically, no, you don't. You could go like 9-pool speed with drone scout, and then like also like make a sunken colony or something. I don't know. Yeah, but I don't think it's good though. You know what I mean? Like I think you can do it, but I think it's just dominated by not doing it. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, a drone can mine about 70 minerals a minute. So, if it's out on the map for 2 minutes, you've like hurt yourself by 140 minerals.
Yeah.
I don't think that's worth it.
Yeah.
For the information that early.
Right. Okay, so do you ever hide your second overlord?
Yeah, it's pretty common. Because you can use the timing of the second overlord to see if it's like an overlord first build. So it's pretty common.
Yeah, and especially, and I was like playing with you, Hawk, and Crossy yesterday too. Like, especially on one-on-one maps, right? Like we were playing on Eclipse, right? Like, and I made this, and I didn't even know this, where I was making the mistake before I was going over gas. I got the overlord first, and then I wasn't hiding my overlord, and I started doing that afterwards. And Cross told me like, hey, you shouldn't show your overlord, because as a 12 full player now I know it's not 9 full speed, right? Because like if your opponent sees a second overlord, or if you see the second overlord on a one-on-one map, then you know you're not against 9 full speed, right? So then you can actually make an adjustment. Like for example, if you're a 12 full player, you could maybe even go 12 full layer or something, right? But then if they start hiding it, then you shouldn't go 12 full layer. But you should almost always hide your second overlord on a one-player map. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't, because it just kind of it reduces information, and the second overlord doesn't give you any information anyways. Like, just bring it in sight once they already see you. So.
I've done the converse of that. This is a nice trick where you actually hide the first one and you pretend that the first one is your second. So like on Eclipse, I'll like not move my first overlord, but then move it out exactly when the second one would have moved out. So then the opponent thinks it's my second overlord when it's actually first, and I went 9 full speed.
Yeah.
So that's something you can try.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then we're actually going to get to the most important question by Pen Friends, and I guess Kane also has like a follow-up to this, but who's the most handsome out of Gypsy, Nyokin, and Artosis? And you got to factor in other things like MMR, personality, personal stability, and career. Holy crap, to come to a rounded decision on who's the best partner. what's your ranking here?
It's really hard for me to say. I mean, these guys are all like studs, obviously. So it's just it's a very difficult decision. Well, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Why are you punting it back to me, man? I don't know, dude. I feel like this is hard because it's like if I talk crap about any one of them, it might backfire. How can I talk crap about the big Tosis? You know what I mean? Like, he's just the big Tosis. They're all handsome Terran players, dude. And who's the best partner? I mean, like that's kind of a strange question, man. I mean, Nyokin's pretty he's like very well put together, I guess. And Gypsy and Artosis, at least on stream, they could be a little crazy sometimes. So I don't know. Dude, you're leaving me in the dust, man.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to model them after their gameplay, I would say like, I mean, Nyokin would be very stable. I think he'd be the most stable partner. You could depend on him. He would be always there for you. I think Artosis will misinterpret things a lot, and I think if you do something that doesn't make sense, he'll like rage on you for like reasons that are like.
Yeah.
Only known to him.
But you got that clout points. You got clout points with Artosis. It's like, oh, I got Artosis next to me. So there's a he might gaslight you into believing that Terran's the hardest. Just kidding.
And I think if it was Gypsy, he would just kind of like AFK for like a month and like not respond to them, and suddenly come back and be like, all right, I'm back in. Like, so yeah, I think Gypsy might be the most unstable in this situation.
Damn, you're saying Gypsy's more unstable than Artosis. All right, let's get that clip. All right. Okay. Cool. That was fun, man. I think that's probably going to conclude it. That was pretty fun. We talked a lot about ZvZ. I kind of liked it because it was like, it's less about, you know, it's more about concepts than build orders because it's like ZvZ build orders are kind of straightforward, just because it's like very short. So hopefully you guys found that fun and informative. And if you missed it, it's also going to be out on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. So yeah, I think that's going to do it. StRyKeR, thank you so much, man, for these three episodes. It was really fun. You know,
yeah, thanks for setting it up, man. I'm sure. Yeah. I hope it helps you prep for your quals.
This is all for me, not for you. It's just like me learning ZvZ for next Friday and Saturday to get back into ZvZ.
I'm glad I could be of help.
Yeah, and I think it's cool because like this is gonna be you know, more so than like live streaming content. It's gonna be just kind of like, yeah, it's gonna be on YouTube, and there's not always like the most like organized content out there. So it's like at least it's kind of gonna be like cemented there for new players to listen into and just like you know, learn some more details and stuff about the game. So yeah, all right, that's gonna end the series. I don't know what I'm gonna do next. So I'm gonna kind of go back to the drawing board, think about what might be either educational or more fun. And if you guys have feedback on what you think would be kind of cool as like alternative forms of content, like, I mean, we could also like bring on more people and make it more fun content than, you know, like educational, if that's what people want. I was thinking of maybe doing something like that where like we go over general topics, make it kind of, I don't know, like debate hot takes, or we can like, I don't know, like do predictions for ASL, you know, stuff like that where it's like less kind of educational but more kind of like interactive. So if you guys have ideas, let me know. I'm probably gonna take, you know, some time to think about it, but hopefully I'll be back in the future doing something similar. And yeah, appreciate it all, and thank you again, StRyKeR.
Yeah, thanks for setting this up. This was a lot of fun.
Yep. All right. See you guys. I'm gonna host Quark.